The Bronco's headlights cut through the February darkness like surgical blades, slicing the Montana night into fragments of snow and shadow. Lieutenant Colonel Sebastian Cole kept his hands at 10 and 2 on the wheel, his posture military straight, despite 8 hours behind the glass. The highway stretched before him like a ribbon of asphalt pulled taut across the throat of the Rockies, endless and unforgiving. In the passenger seat, Major Grayson Thorne dozed fitfully, his head tilted against the window. Condensation from his breath fogged the glass in rhythmic circles. Thorne was 45, a career intelligence analyst with wire-rimmed glasses and the pallor of a man who'd spent too many years in basement offices reading classified cables. Good man, reliable, the kind of soldier who did his job without asking questions that didn't need answers. Sebastian envied him that simplicity. The radio crackled with static, losing signal as they climbed elevation. Sebastian reached over and killed it. The silence that rushed in to fill the void was absolute, broken only by the steady hum of the engine and the whisper of snow against steel. Outside, the Cascade Range rose like the spine of some ancient sleeping beast. The peaks were lost in cloud cover, invisible, but felt their presence a weight on the landscape. 15 years in West Berlin, 15 years watching the wall. And for what? So he could be pulled back stateside to chase ghosts in the snow. The orders had come down 3 days ago. Short, direct, the kind of directive that didn't invite discussion. Lieutenant Colonel Cole, report to Fort Lewis immediately. Assignment investigate, reported KGB, defector sighting, northern Montana border region. Duration 48 hours maximum. Authorization General Victor Ashford, Pentagon liaison. Victor Ashford, his father's old executive officer. The man who'd stood beside Colonel Robert Cole through a dozen operations Sebastian wasn't cleared to know about even now. Ashford had sent flowers to the funeral in 1980. White lilies. The card had read simply, "He served with honor. 6 years ago. Felt like yesterday." Sebastian glanced at the dashboard clock, 2300 hours. They'd been on the road since 0600, making the long haul from Washington State into the wild country where Montana kissed the Canadian border. This was frontier land, the kind of place where towns were separated by 50 miles of nothing. The mission brief had been sparse to the point of useless. A KGB defector, possibly carrying documents related to something called Operation Redbird. No description, no known associates, just a vague sighting reported by a trucker 2 weeks prior. But General Ashford himself had signed the authorization. That made it official. Sebastian's jaw tightened. He didn't like mysteries. Didn't like the feeling of moving pieces on a board he couldn't see. Cedric would have loved this, a voice whispered in the back of his mind. Your little brother always did like puzzles. Sebastian pushed the thought away. Hard. Cedric was dead. Captain Cedric Cole, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, killed in an avalanche during a classified survey mission in Alaska, January 1983. Nobody recovered. The mountains had claimed him, and the Army had filed the paperwork, and that was the end of the story. Except it wasn't. Not really. Because you couldn't bury a ghost and you couldn't mourn what you'd never held in your hands and known with certainty was gone. Sebastian had stopped looking after 6 months. The search teams had combed every accessible slope. The helicopter crews had flown grid patterns until their fuel gauges hit red. The official investigation had concluded death by natural disaster. Remains presumed lost, case closed. He'd gone back to Berlin, back to the work, back to pretending that duty could fill the hole where family used to be. A road sign emerged from the snow, Glacier Park border, 15 miles. Thorne, Sebastian said quietly, we're close. The major stirred, blinking awake. He pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose and squinted at the darkness beyond the windshield. Where are we? 15 miles out. There's a truck stop up ahead. The Grizzly Lodge. We'll start there. You really think we'll find anything? Sebastian didn't answer immediately. Probably not, he admitted, but orders are orders. They drove in silence after that. The road narrowed, became rougher. Pine trees crowded close on either side, their branches heavy with snow. This was the kind of country where you either had four-wheel drive or you stayed home in winter. The Grizzly Lodge appeared like an island in the dark, its neon sign casting a sickly orange glow across the parking lot. The building was squat and functional, all rough-hewn timber and corrugated metal roof. 3 semi-trucks sat in the lot, their engines idling to keep the cabs warm. Steam rose from exhaust pipes ghostly in the cold air. Sebastian pulled in and killed the engine. The sudden silence was profound. Doesn't look like much, Thorne observed. It's not supposed to. Sebastian opened his door. The cold hit him like a physical blow, 20 degrees below freezing easy, with a wind chill that cut through his field jacket like it wasn't even there. Come on, let's get this over with. Inside the lodge was warm to the point of stifling. The heat came from a wood-burning stove in the corner, its belly glowing red through the grated door. The air smelled of coffee, bacon grease, and wet wool. A handful of patrons occupied the booths along the windows. Truckers, mostly men with weathered faces and thousand-yard stares, nursing cups of coffee and picking at plates of eggs that had gone cold an hour ago. Behind the counter stood a waitress. She was young, maybe 22, with blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes that held the particular exhaustion of someone working double shifts to make rent. Her uniform was generic diner issue, white blouse, black slacks, apron tied at the waist. A name tag pinned to her chest read CLEM in faded letters. She looked up as they entered, and Sebastian saw her make the calculation every waitress makes when new customers walk in at this hour. How much trouble are they going to be? Sit anywhere, she called, gesturing vaguely at the empty booths. Coffee, please. Sebastian chose a booth near the back one that gave him clear sight lines to both the entrance and the kitchen. Thorne slid in across from him, already pulling out a small notepad from his coat pocket. The waitress, Clem, brought over a pot and 2 mugs. She poured without asking, the kind of automatic motion that came from muscle memory. Food? Just coffee for now, Sebastian said. He studied her face, looking for signs, nervousness, recognition. Anything that might indicate she'd seen something unusual. He saw only tiredness and the faint irritation of someone who wanted her shift to end. She started to turn away. Miss, Sebastian kept his voice casual. Can I ask you something? Clem paused, her expression guarded. Depends on what you're asking. Sebastian reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. It showed a man in his late 30s, Slavic features, dark hair. Have you seen this man? Would have come through here in the past couple weeks. She glanced at the photo barely a second. No, sorry. You sure maybe he didn't look exactly like this, sir? She cut him off, not unkindly. I serve maybe 200 people a week. Truckers, hunters, the occasional tourist who took a wrong turn. I don't remember faces unless they tip really well or really bad. If your friend came through, I didn't notice. Thorne spoke up. This is a matter of national security. If you have any information, then you should talk to the sheriff. Clem interrupted. I'm just trying to finish my shift. Sebastian held up a hand, stopping Thorne from pressing further. No food. Thank you for your time. She nodded and walked away. Across the diner, one of the truckers was signaling for a refill. Thorne leaned in, lowering his voice. That went nowhere fast. Dead end. Sebastian sipped his coffee. It was terrible, burned and bitter, but at least it was hot. We'll check with local law enforcement in the morning. If the defector was here, someone might have seen something. And if not, then we file a report, head back to base, and chalk it up to bad intelligence. Sebastian was reaching for his wallet when it happened. The waitress, Clem, was refilling the trucker's mug, balancing the coffee pot in one hand, while reaching across the table with the other. Her foot caught on something, maybe the edge of a floor tile, maybe nothing at all. Just one of those small moments of clumsiness that happen 1,000 times a day and mean nothing. She stumbled. The coffee pot wobbled but didn't fall. She caught herself on the edge of the table, muttered an apology to the trucker. Her hand went to her collar, steadying herself, and the chain broke. Sebastian heard the snap, a tiny metallic sound that shouldn't have been audible over the background noise of the diner. But in that moment, it was the only sound in the world. A silver locket tumbled from beneath Clem's collar, the broken chain trailing like a streamer. It hit the linoleum floor with a distinct clatter, the kind of sharp percussion that made people look up from their coffee. The locket bounced once, twice. The impact popped the clasp. It spun, coming to rest on the floor between Sebastian's booth and the trucker's table, lying open like a clamshell. Inside, a photograph, sepia-toned, slightly faded. A man in his early 30s stood in front of a garage, the kind of small-town auto shop with hand-painted signs and oil stains on the concrete. He wore jeans and a plain white t-shirt, his hair windblown, his smile easy and genuine. Behind him, barely visible, a sign read Olson Auto Repair. The man in the photograph had his hands in his pockets. His posture was relaxed, comfortable. This wasn't a formal portrait. This was someone capturing a moment, preserving a memory of an ordinary day. Sebastian looked at the photo. The world stopped. The match was immediate, absolute, undeniable. The coffee mug slipped from Sebastian's fingers. It hit the table, didn't break, but sent a wave of lukewarm coffee spreading across the laminate surface. Thorne jumped back. Clem hurried over with a rag, apologizing. Sebastian didn't hear any of it. He was staring at the photograph on the floor, staring at his brother's face. Sir, Clem was crouching down, reaching for the locket. I'm so sorry. Let me just... Sebastian's hand shot out. Fast. His fingers closed around her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her movement. She froze, her eyes going wide. Where did you get that? Sebastian's voice came out flat, empty. It's mine, Clem said. Let go of me. The photograph. Where did you get the photograph? I don't... It's personal. Let go. Thorn was on his feet now, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Sebastian, what's going on? Sebastian released her wrist. With his other hand, he reached down and picked up the locket. The silver was warm from where it had rested against her skin. He held it in his palm, staring at the image inside. Cedric, younger than the last time Sebastian had seen him. Less formal. No uniform, no military bearing. Just a man standing in front of a garage, caught in a moment of unguarded happiness. But undeniably, unmistakably Cedric. Sir, please, Clem was saying. That's private property. You need to give it back. Sebastian looked up at her. What's his name? What? The man in this picture. What's his name? Clem's eyes darted to the locket, then back to Sebastian's face. That's none of your business. His name, not a request, a command. Thorn moved closer. Sebastian, you're scaring her. What's... Sam, Clem said quickly. His name was Sam. Sam Carter. Now give it back. Sam Carter. Not Cedric Cole. Not Captain Cole, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Sam Carter. Sebastian turned the locket over. On the back, engraved in small, precise letters, USAC E-1279. United States Army Corps of Engineers. Serial number 1279. Was Cedric service identification. The room tilted. Sebastian was aware distantly that he was standing now. Thorn was gripping his arm, saying something. The other patrons in the diner were watching, wary. When, Sebastian heard himself ask, when did you know Sam Carter? Clem took a step back. I don't have to answer your questions. I'm asking nicely. You're really not. Miss Rosewood, Thorn had found her name tag. His tone was placating, reasonable. We're not trying to frighten you, but that locket may be evidence in a federal investigation. If you could just tell us? 1983, Clem said. She was looking at Sebastian now, really looking, and whatever she saw in his face made her decide that lying wasn't going to help. I knew him in 1983. He worked at Olson's garage in Kalispell. We were friends, that's all. 1983. 3 years ago. The year Cedric died. He gave you this? Sebastian gestured with the locket. Yes, before he left. Left for where? I don't know. He didn't say. Just said he had to go, that it wasn't safe to stay. Clem's voice cracked slightly. That was 3 years ago. I haven't heard from him since. Now please give it back. It's all I have left of him. Sebastian looked down at the locket in his hand, at his brother's face frozen in time, captured in a moment that should never have existed. Cedric had been dead, officially dead, for 3 years. The army had closed the file. The memorial service had happened. The flag had been folded and presented to their mother with the standard words of gratitude for sacrifice. But here was a photograph. Dated 1983, based on Clem's testimony, taken after the official date of death, which meant either the photograph was old, mislabeled, or Cedric hadn't died in that avalanche, or someone wanted Sebastian to think he hadn't died. Sebastian's training kicked in. Emotion went into a box. The box went into a vault. When he spoke again, his voice was calm, professional. Miss Rosewood, I need you to come with us. Excuse me? This locket is evidence and you're a witness. He stopped, recalculating. I need you to answer some questions. Official questions. I already told you everything I know. I don't think you have. Sebastian caught Thorn's eye. Thorn gave a microscopic nod and moved toward the door, positioning himself to cut off that exit route. And I think you're in danger. If Sam Carter was who I think he was, then the people looking for him might be looking for you too. That hit home. Sebastian saw it in the way her shoulders tensed. I want to call a lawyer, Clem said. You're not under arrest. This is protective custody. One of the truckers stood up from his booth. Big guy, 6'3", easy, with the build of someone who loaded his own cargo. The lady said, leave her alone. You military, federal business, Sebastian said without looking at him. This doesn't concern you. She's scared. That concerns me. The situation was deteriorating. Thorn's hand had moved to his coat, not drawing his sidearm, but ready to. The other truckers were watching, calculating whether they wanted to be heroes tonight. Sebastian made a decision. He reached into his jacket, slowly telegraphing the motion, and pulled out his military ID. He held it up so Clem could see. Lieutenant Colonel Sebastian Cole, U.S. Army Intelligence. The man in that photograph is my brother. He was declared killed in action 3 years ago. You're telling me you saw him alive after that date. That makes you either a liar or a witness to something that could have national security implications. Either way, you're coming with me until we sort this out. Clem stared at the ID, at his face, at the locket in his hand. Your brother, she repeated slowly. Captain Cedric Cole, age 35, Army Corps of Engineers. Brown hair, brown eyes, 5'11", distinguishing marks, scar on his left forearm, from a climbing accident when he was 14. Does that match Sam Carter? She didn't answer, didn't need to. Sebastian could see the recognition dawning in her eyes. She'd known Sam Carter, known him well enough to keep his photograph for 3 years. And now someone was telling her that Sam Carter had another name, another life. He never told me, Clem whispered. He said he was a mechanic, just a mechanic who got in over his head with the wrong people. What people? He didn't say, just that they were dangerous, that I should forget I ever met him. She looked up at Sebastian. I thought he was dead. I thought whatever trouble he was in had caught up with him and he was dead in a ditch somewhere. He might be. Sebastian hated saying it, but I need to know for sure. And to do that, I need you to tell me everything. Everything he said, everything he did, every detail you can remember. Are you willing to do that? Clem hesitated. Sebastian could see her running through options, trying to find a way out that didn't involve going with two strange men in the middle of the night. Finally, she nodded. Can I get my coat? Make it fast. She disappeared into the back. Thorne moved closer to Sebastian, keeping his voice low. You really think that's your brother in the photo? I know it is. Sebastian was still holding the locket. The question is when that photo was taken and why Cedric was using an alias. Could be old, before his death. She said 1983. Cedric died in January 83. If this was taken after that, then he's alive, or was, 3 years ago. Or someone's setting an elaborate trap using my brother's face as bait. Thorne considered that. Who would go to that much trouble? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Clem emerged from the back wearing a heavy parka and carrying a small purse. She looked resigned. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere we can talk privately, Sebastian said. Somewhere safe. They walked out into the parking lot into air so cold it burned the lungs. The Bronco sat where they'd left it, already accumulating a fresh layer of snow on the hood. Sebastian unlocked it, held the back door open for Clem. She climbed in without protest. As Sebastian walked around to the driver's side, his phone rang. Not his personal cell. The secure line, he answered. Cole. Colonel. The voice on the other end was instantly recognizable. Cultured. Authoritative. I understand you've arrived in Montana. General Ashford. Sebastian kept his voice neutral. Yes, sir. Just beginning preliminary inquiries. And have you found anything? Sebastian looked at the locket in his hand, at Clem sitting in the back of the Bronco. He made a calculation. Fast, instinctive. No, sir. Dead end so far. We're interviewing locals, but no one's seen the defector. I see. Was that relief in Ashford's voice? Well, keep at it, but don't spend too much time up there. If there's nothing to find, there's no sense freezing to death looking for it. Understood, sir. One more thing, Colonel. If you do find anything unusual, anything at all, I want you to contact me directly before filing any official reports. Is that clear? Sir. There are sensitivities around Operation Redbird. Political sensitivities. We need to handle it carefully. Sebastian's grip tightened on the phone. With respect, sir, that sounds like you're asking me to bypass chain of command. I'm asking you to use discretion. There's a difference. Yes, sir. Good man. Check in tomorrow. And Sebastian, sir, your father would be proud of the work you've done. Don't let sentiment cloud your judgment up there. The line went dead. Sebastian stood in the parking lot, snow gathering on his shoulders, staring at the phone. Sentiment. Ashford had no idea. He climbed into the Bronco and started the engine. In the back seat, Clem hugged herself, shivering. Where are we going? She asked again. Sebastian put the truck in gear. My family's ranch. It's about 2 hours south. You'll be safe there while we figure out what's happening. And then what? Then we find out if Sam Carter was really my brother. And if he is. Sebastian didn't finish the sentence. If Cedric was alive, then everything Sebastian thought he knew about the past 3 years was wrong. And if Cedric was alive and hiding under an assumed name, there was only one reason he'd do that. Because someone wanted him dead. Someone with enough power, enough reach to make a military officer disappear and make it look like an accident. Someone who might still be looking for him. The Bronco rolled out of the parking lot, its taillights disappearing into the swirling snow. None of them noticed the black sedan parked at the far edge of the lot, its engine running, its windows tinted dark. None of them saw the figure inside lift a radio and speak 3 words into it. They have contact. The Cole family ranch appeared in the pre-dawn darkness like something out of memory. Sebastian had driven these roads 1,000 times as a teenager, as a young officer on leave, as a man coming home to bury his father. The gate stood where it had always stood, iron posts driven deep into Montana bedrock, a simple arch overhead, with the family name worked in wrought steel. He killed the headlights before turning in. The main house sat 300 yards back from the road, a sprawling log structure that had grown organically over 3 generations. His grandfather had built the original cabin in 1923. His father had added the west wing in 1955. Sebastian himself had helped frame the sunroom in the summer of 1964. The barn loomed to the left. Beyond it, barely visible in the starlight, stood Cedric's cabin, a separate building 60 feet from the main house, built the year Cedric turned 21. Sebastian hadn't been inside that cabin since the memorial service. He parked the Bronco between the house and the barn, positioning it so the engine block faced away from the road. Make it harder for thermal imaging to pick up the heat signature. Probably paranoid. But Sebastian had survived 15 years in Berlin by treating every precaution like gospel. In the back seat, Clem had fallen into an exhausted sleep. She stirred now as the engine died, blinking awake with the disoriented confusion of someone who dozed off in one reality and woken in another. "Where are we?" Her voice was thick with sleep. "Home," Sebastian said. Then, realizing how that sounded, "My family's ranch. You're safe here." Thorne was already out scanning the perimeter. "Quiet. It's 4 in the morning. Everything's quiet at 4 in the morning. You know what I mean." Sebastian did. There was quiet, and then there was the kind of quiet that came from being watched. This was just regular quiet, cold and empty and peaceful. The front door of the main house opened, spilling warm light across the porch. A woman stood silhouetted in the doorway. Evelyn Cole, 62 years old, widowed for 6, still rising before dawn because habits formed over 4 decades didn't break. "Sebastian," his mother's voice carried across the yard, sharp with concern. "What are you doing here?" "Change of plans, Mom." He opened the back door, helped Clem out. "I need to impose on your hospitality for a couple days." Evelyn descended the porch steps. As she got closer, Sebastian could see the lines that grief had carved around her eyes. She wore a flannel robe over practical pajamas, and her gray hair was pulled back in a loose braid. Her gaze swept over Sebastian, over Thorne, and settled on Clem. "Who's this?" "This is Clem Rosewood. She's a witness in an investigation. She needs a safe place to stay." "A witness?" Evelyn's tone suggested she heard all the things Sebastian wasn't saying. "What kind of investigation brings witnesses to my door at 4 in the morning?" Sebastian pulled the locket from his pocket. He opened it, held it so his mother could see the photograph inside. Evelyn Cole made a sound. Not quite a gap, not quite a sob. Something caught between the two. Her hand rose to her mouth, and for a moment Sebastian thought she might fall. He moved to catch her, but she steadied herself against the porch railing. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "She had it." Sebastian nodded toward Clem. "Says a man named Sam Carter gave it to her in 1983. Says Sam Carter worked at a garage in Kalispell." Evelyn's eyes, the same gray as Sebastian's as Cedric's, locked onto Clem's face. "You knew my son." "I knew Sam," Clem said quietly. "I didn't know he was anyone's son. I didn't know he was anything except what he told me." "Which was what?" "That he was a mechanic, that he was in trouble, that I should forget I ever met him." Clem's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. If I'd known." "Come inside." Evelyn's tone shifted, becoming practical maternal. "All of you. It's too cold to have this conversation in the yard." The interior of the Cole house smelled the way it always had: wood smoke and coffee and the faint vanilla scent of the tobacco his father had smoked in his pipe. Family photos lined the mantel above the fireplace. Sebastian avoided looking at them. He knew which ones they were. The spaces where Cedric's face smiled out from frames that Evelyn dusted religiously but never moved. She put on coffee while Sebastian settled Clem in the living room. Thorne excused himself to make a perimeter check. When the coffee was ready, Evelyn sat across from Sebastian and Clem, 3 mugs on the table between them. Steam rose in lazy spirals. Outside, the first gray light of dawn is beginning to bleed into the eastern sky. "Tell me everything," Evelyn said. So Clem did. She'd met Sam Carter in the spring of 1983. He'd come into the diner where she worked, not the Grizzly Lodge, a different place long since closed. He'd been polite, quiet. He came back the next day, and the next. Within a week, they were talking. Within a month, they were friends. Within 2 months, something more. He was gentle, Clem said, staring into her coffee. He had these nightmares. Would wake up shouting about birds, red birds, said they were eating the sun. Sebastian's jaw tightened. He exchanged a glance with his mother. She'd gone very still. He ever explained the nightmares? Sebastian asked. No, just said they'd been with him since he was young, since an accident. Clem looked up. He had a scar on his left arm. Said he got it climbing. Cedric fell on a training climb when he was 14, Evelyn said quietly. 17 stitches. Clem's eyes widened. It was him. It was really him. Keep going, Sebastian said. What happened after you became close? We had about 4 months. He worked at the garage, fixed cars. He was good with his hands, good at solving problems. She paused, gathering herself. Then one night in January, he showed up at my apartment. 2 in the morning, he was bleeding. Sebastian leaned forward. Bleeding from what? A cut on his side, not deep but long, like someone had slashed him with a knife. He wouldn't tell me how it happened. Just kept saying, they found me. They found me. He was terrified. Did you see who they were? No, he made me turn off all the lights. We sat in the dark for 2 hours. Then he said he had to leave, had to disappear. Gave me the locket, told me to keep it safe. Clem's hands shook around the coffee mug. He kissed me goodbye, told me he was sorry for bringing danger to my door, and then he was gone. I never heard from him again. The room fell silent. Outside a rooster crowed. Evelyn spoke first. He was alive. In 1983, after the army told us he was dead, my baby boy was alive and hiding in Montana, and I didn't know. Mom, don't. She held up a hand. Just let me sit with this for a moment. They sat. Sebastian watched his mother's face, watched grief and hope, and anger war for dominance. Finding out Cedric might have been alive, might still be alive, was a gift and a curse. It meant 3 years of mourning had been built on a lie. After a long moment, Evelyn straightened. What's your plan? I need to search Cedric's cabin, see if there's anything he left behind. It's been 3 years, Sebastian. If there was evidence, not if they didn't know what to look for. Sebastian pulled out a journal. I found this hidden behind his bookshelf earlier. Last entry is from January 83. He opened to the final page, read aloud. June 1982, father was right. Someone in the unit is compromised. October 1982, trace payments to Swiss account. January 1983, they're watching me. Need to disappear. We'll use protocol Redbird. Evelyn's face went white. Protocol Redbird. You know it. Your father taught you boys survival codes. Emergency protocols, in case you were ever compromised in the field. Redbird meant trust no one official. Sebastian nodded slowly. Cedric didn't just run, he ran from someone in the military. Someone high enough up to fake his death and make it stick. But who? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. The sound of footsteps on the porch interrupted them. Sebastian's hand went to his sidearm. Then Thorne's voice called through the door. It's me. We've got a problem. Sebastian opened the door. Thorne stood on the threshold. Behind him, parked in the driveway, was a black sedan that definitely hadn't been there when they'd arrived. Visitor, Thorne said. Came up the drive about 5 minutes ago. Professional. Knew exactly where she was going. She, as if on cue, the sedan's door opened. A woman stepped out. Sebastian recognized her immediately and his stomach dropped. Vera Ashford, 34 years old, de liaison daughter of General Victor Ashford, and as of 6 months ago, Sebastian's fiancée. She wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and her dark hair was pulled back in a style that was both professional and severe. She moved like someone used to command, each step deliberate and confident. Sebastian, her voice carried across the yard, we need to talk. Sebastian descended the porch steps slowly. Vera, this is unexpected. Is it? She stopped 10 feet away. Your mother called me, said you'd shown up in the middle of the night with a strange woman and a story about Cedric. Did you really think I wouldn't come? He glanced back at the house. Through the window, he could see his mother's silhouette. Of course she'd called Vera. In Evelyn's world, Vera was family, or would be once the wedding happened this June, if the wedding happened. This is official business, Sebastian said carefully. I can't discuss an ongoing investigation. Investigation? Vera laughed, but there was no humor in it. Sebastian, you're chasing ghosts. Cedric died 3 years ago. I was at the memorial service. We both cried. No body was recovered. Because it was an avalanche. Because he was buried under 10,000 tons of snow. Sebastian pulled out the locket. This woman knew him in 1983, after his death. He was using an alias working as a mechanic running from something. Vera's expression didn't change, but Sebastian had spent 15 years reading micro-expressions. He saw the fractional tightening around her eyes, the almost imperceptible pause before she responded. She was surprised, but not shocked, which meant she'd already known something was wrong with Cedric's death. "Where did you get that?" Vera's voice remained steady. "The witness. She's inside. I want to talk to her." "That's not happening." "Sebastian, I'm trying to help you. If Cedric was alive, if he's still alive, then someone went to enormous trouble to fake his death. That means conspiracy at a very high level. That means you're in danger just by asking questions." "I can handle danger." "And can you," Vera took a step closer, "can you handle the possibility that your brother didn't just run, that maybe he was the one who was compromised, that maybe he faked his death because he was guilty of something?" The words hit like a physical blow. Sebastian felt his vision narrow. "Watch yourself. I'm serious. You're emotionally compromised. You want Cedric to be the hero so badly that you're not considering other possibilities." Vera's tone softened slightly. "Come back to DC with me. File a report through proper channels. Let the professionals handle this." "I am a professional." "You're a brother. That's different." They stood facing each other in the gray dawn light, two people who'd shared a bed and made promises, but who suddenly seemed to be speaking different languages. "Did you know," he asked quietly. Vera blinked. "Know what?" "That something was wrong with Cedric's death. That the official story didn't add up." Sebastian Bois did. "You know." The silence stretched. In that pause, Sebastian got his answer. "My father believes Cedric was involved in something classified," Vera said finally. "Something he didn't have clearance for. The avalanche was convenient, but there were questions, inconsistencies. Dad looked into it, but the investigation dead-ended." "Your father looked into it?" "Yes. General Victor Ashford, who was my father's executive officer, who ran Crimson Unit after Dad died." "What does that have to do with—" "Cedric's journal mentions a compromised unit, mentions Swiss bank accounts and payments. What if those payments were going to someone in Crimson Unit?" Vera's expression hardened. "You're accusing my father of treason." "I'm saying there are questions that need answers." "No, you're looking for someone to blame because you can't accept that sometimes good men die for no reason." Vera turned toward her car. "I'm going to pretend this conversation didn't happen. I'm going to give you 24 hours to come to your senses. After that, I'm filing a report with your commanding officer stating that you're suffering from emotional distress and require immediate psychological evaluation." "Vera, 24 hours, Sebastian. Use them wisely." She got into her sedan, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. Thorne approached from where he'd been maintaining a tactical distance. "That went well." "She knew." Sebastian watched the dust settle on the road. "She knew something was wrong and she never told me. Maybe she was trying to protect you. Or maybe she was trying to protect her father." They went back inside. Evelyn was in the kitchen making breakfast. Bacon sizzled in a cast-iron pan. Eggs waited in a bowl. The coffee pot had been refilled. Clem sat at the table looking lost. "Your fiancée seems nice," she said with deadpan delivery. Sebastian almost smiled. "She has her moments." Evelyn set plates on the table with more force than necessary. "That girl has her father's eyes. Cold. Calculating. I never understood why you wanted to marry her." "Mom, Robert didn't trust Victor Ashford. Did you know that your father never said it outright, but I could tell, the way he'd get quiet when Ashford's name came up." She sat down, her hands shaking slightly. "I thought it was paranoia. Robert had been in the intelligence game too long. But what if he was right?" Sebastian reached across the table, took his mother's hand. "What did Dad say about Ashford?" "Nothing specific, just little things. Watch that one." Once near the end, he said, "If anything happens to me, don't believe the official story." Mom, Dad died in a car accident. There was an investigation. I know what the report said. Single vehicle collision, black ice. But Sebastian, your father had been driving Montana roads for 40 years. And the timing," she trailed off. "What timing?" "He died 3 weeks after telling me he'd found something. Something big. He wouldn't say what, just that he was going to make a report to someone outside the normal chain of command." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. And then the accident happened. The pieces were starting to assemble. Not a complete picture, but the edges of something vast and dark. Sebastian pulled the journal out again. Father was right. Someone in the unit is compromised, he read aloud. Cedric was investigating the same thing Dad was investigating, and they both ended up dead. Or running, Clem interjected. Cedric didn't die, he ran. Because he was smarter than Dad, because he saw what happened to our father and knew he'd be next. Sebastian stood abruptly. I need to search that cabin, every inch. If Cedric left any evidence behind, I need to find it. Thorne was already on his feet. I'll help. No, I need you to stay here. Protect them. Sebastian gestured to his mother and Clem. If Vera knows I'm asking questions, her father knows. And if Ashford is involved, he'll send people. You think they'd attack your family home? I think when you're covering up treason and murder, there's no such thing as sacred ground. Sebastian grabbed his coat and headed for the door. The walk to Cedric's cabin took 30 seconds. The structure was smaller than the main house. Cedric had designed it himself, practical, efficient, with large windows facing east to catch the morning sun. The door wasn't locked. Inside, everything was exactly as it had been 3 years ago. Evelyn had kept it as a shrine. Engineering textbooks lined one wall. Maps of Alaska covered another, red pins marking survey sites. His desk sat beneath the window paper still scattered across it. Sebastian moved through the space methodically. He'd already found the journal, but there had to be more. Cedric was meticulous. If he'd been investigating something dangerous enough to fake his own death, he would have documented it. Multiple copies, multiple hiding places. The bookshelf first. Sebastian pulled every volume. Nothing. The desk next. Every drawer removed, inspected. Nothing. The floorboards. Sebastian got on his hands and knees. Found 3 loose planks, but the spaces beneath held only dust. 45 minutes of searching yielded nothing new. Sebastian sat on the floor, frustration building. He was missing something. Then he remembered. Redbird Protocol. Trust no one official. And their father's voice teaching 2 boys survival skills. If you need to hide something, hide it where people will look but not see. Hide it in plain sight. Sebastian's eyes swept the cabin again, looking not for hiding places, but for things that should be there but weren't, or things that were there but shouldn't be. His gaze settled on the maps. Alaska, survey sites, red pins marking locations. But Cedric had been a Corps of Engineers officer. His job was infrastructure, assessment, dams, bridges, roads. So why were half the pins in the middle of nowhere? In wilderness areas where no construction would ever be approved, Sebastian approached the wall. There were 17 pins total. He pulled the first one, examined it. Just a pin. He tried the second. The third. The 7th pin was different. Heavier. The head unscrewed. Inside was a microfilm canister. Sebastian's pulse quickened. He worked faster now, found 3 more with hidden canisters. 4 total. He laid them out on the desk. Each one was labeled with a date written in Cedric's precise handwriting. June 1982, October 1982, December 1982, January 1983. A timeline, a record. But Sebastian didn't have a microfilm reader. He'd need to get these to a facility with the right equipment, which meant entering official channels, which meant General Ashford would know. He was so focused on the problem that he almost missed the sound of vehicles approaching. Almost. Sebastian moved to the window, staying back from the glass. 2 black Suburbans were coming up the drive, moving fast. They didn't slow at the gate. His hand went to his sidearm. The Suburbans stopped in front of the main house. Doors opened. 4 men emerged from each vehicle. 8 total. They moved with military precision, wearing civilian clothes but carrying weapons openly. Sebastian keyed his radio. Thorne, we have company. 8 hostiles, professional grade. Get everyone to the safe room. The safe room was a Cold War relic. Robert Cole had built it in 1962, a reinforced concrete bunker beneath the main house, accessed through a hidden door in the pantry. Thorne's voice came back tight with tension. Copy. Moving now. What's your position? Cedric's cabin. I'm boxed in. Can you make it to the barn? Sebastian assessed. 30 yards of open ground. The hostiles were focused on the main house, but the moment he moved, he'd be visible. Negative, I'm going to ground here. Do not engage unless they breach the safe room. Understood. Sebastian. That's an order, Major. He clicked off before Thorne could argue. Through the window, Sebastian watched the 8 men spread out. 4 moved to cover the exits of the main house. The other 4 approached the front door. The leader knocked. Polite, professional. Evelyn opened the door. Sebastian couldn't hear what was said, but he saw his mother's body language. Stiff. Defensive. The leader pushed past her, entered the house. His team followed. Sebastian's finger tightened on his pistol grip. Every instinct screamed at him to go to fight to protect his mother. But Thorne was there. And the safe room was built to withstand anything short of direct explosive breach. 2 minutes later, the team emerged, empty-handed. The leader spoke into a radio, listened, nodded. Then he turned and looked directly at Cedric's cabin, directly at Sebastian's position. Sebastian dropped below the window line. They knew he was here, which meant either they had thermal imaging or someone had told them. Either way, he had about 30 seconds. The microfilm canisters sat on the desk. Evidence, proof of whatever Cedric had died for or faked his death to protect. Sebastian grabbed all four, shoved them in his jacket pocket. The cabin had 2 exits, front door and back window. Both would be covered by now. Fighting his way out against 8 trained operators with only his sidearm and no body armor was suicide, which left going to ground. The cabin didn't have a basement, but it had a crawl space. Sebastian moved fast. He pulled up the rug, found the access panel. 18 inches of clearance, dirt floor, darkness. He heard boots on the porch. Sebastian dropped into the crawl space, pulled the panel closed above him, positioned the rug as best he could from below. Then he went utterly still, controlling his breathing, a meditation technique learned in survival school. Become nothing, become invisible. The door crashed open, footsteps above, heavy, military boots. Clear, a voice, male, American accent, professional. Check everything. Another voice, authority, the leader. He was here. Heat signature is still fresh. They tore the cabin apart. Sebastian heard books hitting the floor drawers, being yanked out, furniture overturned. They were systematic, thorough. A boot stomped directly above Sebastian's head. Dust rained down through the floorboard gaps. Nothing, the first voice reported. Back windows locked from inside, another voice called. He didn't leave that way. Then where the hell is he? Silence. Burn it, the leader said finally. Sir, burn the cabin. If he's got evidence hidden here, we destroy it. If he's somehow still inside, we flush him out. What about the family? The family is secured. They can't report what they can't see. Footsteps retreated. The cabin door slammed. Sebastian waited, counted to 60, then 80. Smoke began seeping through the floorboards. They'd actually done it. Set fire to his brother's cabin with Sebastian inside. He had maybe 3 minutes before the smoke killed him, maybe 5 before the floor collapsed. Sebastian shoved the access panel up, rolled out into the cabin. Smoke billowed from the front room. They'd used accelerant, probably gasoline. The fire was spreading fast. The back window was his only option. Sebastian grabbed a chair, hurled it through the glass. The window exploded outward. He dove through, hit the ground hard, rolled to absorb impact. Came up running. Gunfire erupted. Automatic weapons. Rounds chewed up the dirt around his feet. Sebastian zigzagged, using every evasion technique drilled into him during 20 years of service. Made it to the barn, crashed through the door, kept moving. The barn was dark, filled with shadows and the smell of hay and motor oil. Sebastian vaulted over a workbench, put a tractor between himself and the door. The shooting stopped. Footsteps outside. Tactical positions being taken. Colonel Cole, the leader's voice. This doesn't have to end badly. Give us what your brother left. You walk away. You have my word you won't be harmed. Sebastian didn't waste breath responding. He moved deeper into the barn toward the back where his father had kept the hunting rifles. Found the cabinet. Locked. Shot the lock off with his pistol. Grabbed a Remington 700. Checked the chamber. Loaded. His father had always kept his weapons ready. Last chance, Colonel. Sebastian settled into a shooting position behind a hay bale. Come and get me, he called back. The barn door exploded inward. Flashbang grenade. Sebastian had anticipated it, had his eyes closed, mouth open to equalize pressure. Still, the concussive wave felt like being hit by a train, but he could still fight. The first man through the door took a rifle round to the chest. Body armor stopped the kill shot, but the impact knocked him down. The second man took Sebastian's second shot in the thigh, dropping him screaming. Return fire shredded the hay bale. Sebastian moved, combat crawled to a new position. Fired twice more. One hit, one miss. This was untenable. He was outnumbered, outgunned, pinned down. He needed a miracle. He got one. The sound of helicopter rotors. But not the enemy's. This one was bigger. Military. A Huey painted in army green. It descended into the ranch yard rotors, whipping up a storm of dust and snow. The side door opened and a squad of soldiers in full combat gear fast roped down. The black-clad operators hesitated, confused. The newcomers weren't confused at all. They opened fire with professional precision. 3-round bursts. Controlled. Devastating. The operators ran for their Suburbans. They didn't make it. The soldiers cut them down or forced them to ground hands behind heads. Sebastian emerged from the barn rifle still at ready. A figure approached from the helicopter, an officer in a colonel's uniform. "Lieutenant Colonel Cole," the officer shouted over the rotor wash. "That's me. Colonel James Mercer, C.I.D. Your Major Thorne made a very interesting phone call to my office 20 minutes ago. Criminal Investigation Command, the Army's police force. Thorne called C.I.D. Sebastian lowered his rifle. Actually, he called the Pentagon first, then he called us. Then he called every goddamn 3-letter agency in Washington until someone listened." Mercer grinned. "I like that man. He has initiative." The helicopter lifted off. The sudden quiet after the rotors faded was profound. Sebastian looked at the burning cabin, at the captured operators now being zip-tied by CID soldiers, at the main house where his mother and Clem were emerging from the safe room guided by Thorne. "This is going to be a very long report," Mercer observed. "You have no idea," Sebastian said. But for the first time in 3 years, he felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Because the microfilm canisters in his pocket held answers. And now with CID involved, he had a chance to find out what those answers were without General Victor Ashford shutting down the investigation. The hunt wasn't over, it was just beginning. The CID field office in Missoula occupied the 3rd floor of a nondescript federal building 2 blocks from the courthouse. Colonel James Mercer had commandeered a conference room and turned it into a makeshift operations center. Maps covered one wall, evidence bags lined a folding table. A microfilm reader sat in the corner borrowed from the university library. Sebastian hadn't slept in 36 hours. He could feel it in his bones and the way his thoughts moved through mud instead of water. But sleep was a luxury for people who weren't sitting on evidence that might bring down a general. Across the table, Mercer reviewed the contents of the first microfilm canister. He was 52 career CID, with the kind of face that had seen every flavor of human ugliness and stopped being surprised years ago. His reading glasses sat low on his nose. Every few seconds, he'd make a note on the legal pad beside him. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. Not for the first time. Sebastian sipped coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. "That bad? Worse?" Mercer looked up. "Your brother documented a systematic pattern of classified information being sold to Soviet intelligence over 8 years. Wire transfers, dead drops, coded communications. He has dates, amounts, and..." Mercer tapped the screen, photographs. "Of who?" "Let me finish the first canister before I make accusations I can't take back." Thorne sat by the window, his leg elevated. He'd taken shrapnel during the firefight at the ranch, nothing serious but enough to require stitches and painkillers. He'd refused to stay at the hospital, said he wanted to see this through. The door opened. A CID agent named Morrison entered carrying a file folder. "Sir, we've got preliminary IDs on the attackers." Mercer gestured for him to continue. "All 8 are former military, Special Forces backgrounds. 5 from Delta, 2 from Rangers, 1 Navy SEAL. All were discharged within the past 3 years. On paper, they're working for a private security contractor called Apex Solutions based out of Virginia." Apex Solutions. Mercer wrote the name down. "Who runs it?" "That's where it gets interesting. The company was incorporated in 1983. The CEO is listed as Michael Brennan, former Army colonel, retired. But when we pulled Brennan's file..." Morrison paused. "He served in Crimson Unit, directly under General Victor Ashford. The pieces were falling into place. Ashford's running a private army," Sebastian said quietly. "Former Crimson Unit operators officially discharged, but still taking orders, cleaning up loose ends." "That's one theory." Mercer returned to the microfilm. "Let's see if your brother's evidence supports it." 20 minutes later, Mercer removed his glasses and pinched the bridge of his nose. "Okay, I need to make a phone call. A very carefully worded, very sensitive phone call to someone at DOD who isn't in Ashford's pocket." "You believe it?" Sebastian asked. "I believe your brother was a meticulous investigator. Whether it's enough to convict a 2-star general..." Mercer shrugged. "That's above my pay grade, but it's enough to start an official investigation. Ashford will know the moment you make that call, which is why I'm going to make several calls simultaneously to several different agencies. FBI, CIA, Senate Intelligence Committee, cover all the bases so he can't shut us down quietly." Mercer stood. "In the meantime, I need you to tell me everything about your brother's disappearance." Sebastian spent the next hour walking Mercer through the official story, the Alaska assignment, the avalanche, the search efforts, the memorial service. When he finished, Mercer leaned back in his chair. Your brother was good. Faking your own death in an avalanche is textbook, no body plausible, environmental hazard difficult to investigate. But it requires help, someone to file the right reports. Who had that kind of access? Your brother's commanding officer on the Alaska assignment, a Major Paul Henderson. Mercer consulted his notes. Henderson filed the initial incident report, led the search effort, signed off on the presumptive death declaration. Where's Henderson now? Retired, 1984, lives in Seattle. Mercer made another note. I'll have someone interview him, quietly. The conference room door opened again. This time it was a woman in an FBI windbreaker. Special Agent Sarah Chen, 38, with sharp eyes and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd worked organized crime for a decade. Colonel Mercer, she said, we have a problem. Only one answer. General Ashford just held a press conference 20 minutes ago. He announced that Lieutenant Colonel Sebastian Cole is under investigation for misappropriating classified materials and is considered armed and dangerous. There's a bolo out for your arrest, Colonel. Sebastian felt the floor tilt. He's getting ahead of the story. And he's using the media to do it, Chen agreed. Smart. By the time we can prove your innocence, the damage to your credibility will be done. Mercer swore, loudly. Can we counter-release Cedric's evidence? Not without compromising the investigation. And if we go public before we have ironclad proof, Ashford's lawyers will tear it apart. Chain of custody issues. Authentication questions. The microfilm could be doctored. We need more. We need Cedric, Sebastian said. A live witness. Someone who can testify to what he saw. The microfilm is evidence, but a human being is proof. Thorne spoke up from his position by the window. Then we find him. He's been hiding for 3 years. But he left breadcrumbs for Sebastian to follow. The locket, the journal. Maybe he left more. Sebastian pulled out the journal, flipped through the pages again. If Protocol Redbird fails, go to the Eagle's Nest, he read aloud. Dad had an observation post, a shelter he built in the Sawtooth Mountains during the Cold War. He called it the Eagle's Nest. Idaho, Mercer said. That's federal land, wilderness area, perfect place to disappear. It's also 300 miles from here. In February, through mountain passes that get 40 feet of snow. So we use a helicopter. Ashford controls military aviation assets in this region. The moment we request a bird, he'll know where we're going. Chen crossed her arms. What about civilian charter companies? Possible, but still requires flight plans, which means a paper trail. Thorne shifted his weight, grimacing as his injured leg protested. We drive. Take snowmobiles for the last stretch. Low profile, old school. That's an 8-hour drive minimum, Mercer pointed out. Plus however long to reach the observation post on snowmobiles. Call it 12 hours total. Ashford's people could intercept us anywhere along the road. Not if we don't go the direct route. Sebastian traced a line on the map. We go south first into Wyoming. Make it look like we're heading for Cheyenne, then cut west through Idaho backcountry. Add time, but it's less predictable. Mercer considered this. You're assuming Cedric is even there. It's been 3 years. He could be anywhere. He's there. Sebastian said it with certainty. The journal, the locket, the microfilm, it's all a trail. Cedric knew I'd find it eventually. He's waiting. Or he's dead. Then we find his body and give him a proper burial. Either way, this ends. Chen stepped forward. I'm coming with you. Mercer frowned. Agent Chen. If we find Cedric Cole alive, he's a witness in a federal investigation. FBI jurisdiction. You need me there for legal cover. She's right, Sebastian admitted. Plus an extra pair of hands doesn't hurt. Mercer sighed. Fine, but I'm sending a team behind you. 2 hours delay. If you run into trouble, you'll need backup. No, Sebastian's tone left no room for argument. A team means vehicles, communications, a footprint. Ashford's people will see it coming. We go small, 4 people maximum. Fast and quiet. 4 me, Thorne, Agent Chen, and Sebastian paused. Clem. Everyone stared at him. The waitress, Mercer said. Are you serious? She knew Cedric in 1983. She might be the only person he'll trust if we actually find him. And she's a witness. Keeping her close keeps her safe. Or gets her killed. Ashford's people already know about her. They tracked us to the ranch. Leaving her behind just makes her a target. Sebastian met Mercer's eyes. She comes with us, or I don't go at all. It was a bluff. Barely. But Mercer bought it. Your funeral, the colonel muttered. When do you leave? 2 hours. We'll need snowmobiles, cold weather gear, and weapons that won't freeze. I can arrange that. What about transportation to the staging area? Civilian vehicle. Something that won't stand out. A pickup truck with four-wheel drive. Chen nodded. I'll requisition one from the FBI motor pool, unmarked. Good. Sebastian folded the map. Once we have Cedric, once we have his testimony, we come back and we end this. Ashford, his private army, everyone involved. We burn it all down. And if Cedric doesn't want to testify? Thorne asked quietly. Sebastian had thought about that. Then I'll convince him, Sebastian said. He's my brother. He'll listen. He hoped that was true. 2 hours later, Sebastian stood in the parking garage beneath the federal building, watching as supplies were loaded into a dark blue Ford F-250. The truck was anonymous, 10 years old, with Montana plates and enough wear to blend into rural traffic. Clem arrived escorted by a CID agent. She'd been sequestered in a safe location since the ranch attack. She looked tired, overwhelmed, but determined. They said you want me to come with you, she said, to find Cedric. If you're willing, no one's forcing you. Clem laughed a short, bitter sound. I've been kidnapped, interrogated, shot at, and now apparently I'm wanted for questioning in a federal conspiracy. At this point, I figure I might as well see it through. It's going to be dangerous. Everything's been dangerous since I dropped that locket. She looked at Sebastian steadily. And if there's a chance Sam Cedric is alive out there, then I want to be there when you find him. I want answers too. Sebastian respected that. Get in, we leave in 5 minutes. Thorne was already in the passenger seat, his rifle case stowed behind him. Chen took the driver's position. She knew the Idaho backcountry had worked cases there during her bureau days. That left Sebastian and Clem in the back seat. As Chen started the engine, Mercer appeared at the driver's window. He handed over a satellite phone. Emergency use only. The frequency is encrypted, but Ashford might have the capability to triangulate if you use it. So make it count. Understood. And Sebastian, Mercer's expression was grave. Whatever you find out there, whether it's your brother or just more questions, be careful. Ashford's gotten away with murder for 6 years. Men like that don't stop. They double down. I know. The F-250 rolled out of the garage into the weak afternoon sunlight. February in Montana meant sunset by 5 p.m. They had maybe 3 hours of daylight left. Chen navigated through Missoula's downtown, then onto Highway 93 southbound. The road stretched ahead, flanked by snow-covered fields and distant mountains. Traffic was light, a few semis, some local traffic. But Sebastian watched anyway, checked mirrors, looked for patterns. They drove in silence for the first hour. Thorne dozed, the painkillers catching up to him. Clem stared out the window. Chen maintained a steady 70 miles per hour. Sebastian used the quiet to think. The Eagle's Nest observation post had been built in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. His father had been convinced nuclear war was imminent and wanted a fallback position for the family. He'd chosen a location in the Sawtooth Wilderness, remote, defensible, with a natural spring for water. Robert Cole had taken both his sons there exactly once in the summer of 1965. Sebastian had been 17. Cedric 14. They'd hiked in over 2 days learning survival skills. It had been one of the last good memories before everything got complicated. Now, 21 years later, Sebastian was trying to remember every detail of that trip. The route, the landmarks, the hidden entrance. His father had been paranoid, but paranoia, it turned out, was just pattern recognition applied to threats most people refuse to see. Can I ask you something? Clem's voice broke his reverie. Sebastian looked over. Sure. Why did you really bring me along and don't give me the witness protection line? Sebastian considered lying, decided against it. Because if we find Cedric, he's going to be scared. Paranoid. 3 years of hiding does that to a person. And the sight of his big brother, the one who works for the same organization that tried to kill him, might not be reassuring. But me? You're someone he trusted once. Someone from his civilian life. You might be the only person who can talk him down from whatever ledge he's standing on. Clem absorbed this. You think he's lost it? I think isolation and fear do things to the mind. I think 3 years of looking over your shoulder, never trusting anyone, living like a hunted animal, that changes you. And I think when we find him, he might not be the man either of us remember. But you're going anyway. He's my brother. Clem nodded slowly. Sam told me once that he had family, that he'd walked away from them to keep them safe. She paused. He talked about his brother sometimes. Said his brother was the best soldier he'd ever known. Said if anyone could survive the end of the world, it would be him. Sebastian felt something tighten in his chest. He said that, yeah, he also said his brother scared him a little. Said you were so dedicated to duty, to the mission, that you sometimes forgot there were other things worth fighting for. He wasn't wrong. Is that why you're doing this, to prove him wrong? I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do, because I failed him once. When the army said he was dead, I believed it. I stopped looking after 6 months. And if he was out there hiding, surviving, needing help, I wasn't there. You didn't know. I should have. I should have trusted my instincts. The truck crested a hill. In the distance, the Bitterroot Range rose like a wall of white against the darkening sky. Chen glanced in the rearview mirror. We've got company. Sebastian turned. A mile back, a dark SUV had appeared. It maintained distance, but it matched their speed exactly. How long? He asked. Since we left Missoula. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see if it was coincidence. It's not. Thorne was awake now, alert, despite the drugs. Can you see the plates? Too far, but it's maintaining professional surveillance distance. Ashford's people, Sebastian said. Or FBI counterintelligence, Chen countered. Or CIA. We kicked over a hornet's nest. Everyone wants to know where we're going. Can we lose them? Chen smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. We're about to find out. She waited until they reached a stretch of highway bordered by thick forest. No other traffic visible. Then she accelerated hard, the F-250's engine roaring. The SUV matched speed. Chen took the next exit, a small county road that led into the mountains. The truck's suspension groaned as they hit rough pavement. She pushed the speed up to 60, too fast for the conditions. The SUV followed. They're committed, Thorne observed. Chen took a hard left onto what was barely a road, more like a logging trail, unpaved, covered in ice. The truck fishtailed. She corrected, accelerated again. Behind them, the SUV hesitated. Just for a second. Then it followed. Bad decision. The logging road climbed steeply, switchbacking up the mountainside. Chen took the turns with precision, using the truck's momentum to slide through corners. She knew this road. Had used it before Sebastian realized. The SUV was struggling. Lower clearance, lighter weight, wrong tires. It fell back. Chen reached a straightaway and floored it. The truck launched forward, engine screaming. Half a mile ahead, another turn. She took it at 50, the truck going completely sideways before the tires bit and pulled them straight. The SUV didn't make the turn. Sebastian watched in the side mirrors as the vehicle slid over, corrected, and slammed into a snowbank. It stopped, hard steam rising from the hood. No explosion, no fire, just an expensive vehicle stuck in the snow. Chen slowed to a reasonable speed. That should buy us a few hours. Nice driving, Thorne said. I did a stint with the FBI's surveillance team. You learn things. They continued for another 20 minutes, then Chen pulled onto a Forest Service road that looked abandoned. She drove another mile, then stopped in a clearing, hidden from the main road by dense pines. We switch here, she said. Snowmobiles are stashed half a mile north. From there, it's another 15 miles to the Eagle's Nest. Everyone climbed out. The cold hit like a fist. Sebastian checked his watch, 4:47 p.m. Sunset in 13 minutes. They'd be making the final approach in darkness. Chen led them through the forest to a small hunting cabin. Inside, covered by tarps, were 2 snowmobiles, Arctic Cat models, well maintained. A cache of supplies sat beside them, fuel cans, cold weather gear, weapons. Who set this up? Sebastian asked. Someone at the bureau who owes me a favor. Don't ask questions I can't answer. Fair enough. They geared up quickly. Sebastian took a Remington 8.70 shotgun and his service pistol. Thorne had his rifle despite his injured leg. Chen carried a Glock and a compact AR-15. Clem got a pistol after Chen gave her a 5-minute crash course. Point squeeze. Don't close your eyes, Chen summarized. And for God's sake, don't shoot any of us. I'll try, Clem said dryly. The snowmobile started on the first try. Chen took the lead machine with Clem riding behind her. Sebastian drove the second with Thorne as passenger. The engines were loud in the quiet forest, but there was no helping that. They set off into the gathering darkness. The terrain was brutal. The snowmobiles climbed through drifts 4 feet deep, navigated between trees that appeared suddenly in the headlights, forded half-frozen streams. Chen drove with confidence. Sebastian followed, trusting her route selection. 2 hours in, they stopped to refuel and check navigation. They were deep in the wilderness now, far beyond where any casual hiker would venture in winter. The only sound was wind through the pines and the distant howl of what might have been a wolf. Thorne consulted a GPS unit. We're close, maybe 5 miles. How's your leg? Sebastian asked. Hurts like hell, but I can still pull a trigger. They mounted up again. The final 5 miles took 90 minutes. The terrain got steeper, the snow deeper. Twice they had to dismount and dig out the snowmobiles when they got stuck. But finally Chen stopped. She killed her engine, gestured for Sebastian to do the same. In the sudden silence, she pointed upward. A cliff face rose into the darkness, maybe 300 feet high. At the top, barely visible against the stars, was a rock formation that looked like a bird of prey with wings spread. The eagle's nest. We go on foot from here, Chen said quietly. Sound carries in cold air. If anyone's up there, they'll hear the engines. They hid the snowmobiles under cut branches, shouldered their packs, and began to climb. The ascent was treacherous. The path was more of a suggestion carved into the cliff face by erosion. Ice made every handhold uncertain. The darkness turned every step into an act of faith. Sebastian climbed with his rifle slung across his back, using both hands to grip the rock. Behind him, Thorne struggled with his injured leg, but refused help. Clem climbed between Chen and Sebastian, moving carefully, but without complaint. 45 minutes of climbing brought them to a narrow ledge. Sebastian's lungs burned from the thin air and exertion. His fingers were numb despite the gloves. But there, set into the cliff face behind a natural outcropping of rock, was a door. Steel, weathered, locked. Sebastian approached slowly. The door showed signs of use, scratches around the locked snow cleared from the threshold. Someone was here, or had been recently. He tried the handle. Locked. Then he remembered. His father's paranoia had extended to entry protocols. There was a key, but there was also a knock sequence. 3 quick, 2 slow, 1 quick. A pattern Robert Cole had drilled into his sons during that 1965 visit. Sebastian knocked the pattern, waited. Nothing. He knocked again. 30 seconds of silence. Then from inside a sound. Metal scraping. The lock disengaging. The door opened 6 inches. A shadow stood in the gap, backlit by dim candlelight. A voice Sebastian hadn't heard in 3 years spoke from the darkness. "Hello, brother. I was wondering when you'd figure it out." Cedric Cole stepped into the light. He looked like a ghost. Not the Cedric Cole that Sebastian remembered from 3 years ago, the clean-cut army captain with regulation haircut and pressed uniform. This man was gaunt, almost skeletal, his face weathered by wind and sun into something harder than leather. A beard, unkempt and streaked with premature gray, obscured the jawline Sebastian had known since childhood. His hair hung past his shoulders, matted in places, tied back with what looked like paracord. But the eyes were the same. Brown, intelligent, carrying the weight of too many sleepless nights and too many decisions that couldn't be unmade. Cedric wore layers, thermal underwear beneath wool pants, a fleece jacket over a flannel shirt, all of it patched and repatched with the careful stitching of someone who'd learned to make things last. His hands, visible in the candlelight, were calloused and scarred, the hands of a man who'd learned to survive with what he could carry. For a long moment, the two brothers just stared at each other across the threshold. Then Cedric's gaze moved past Sebastian to the 3 figures standing behind him on the ledge. His eyes widened when they settled on Clem. "Clem," his voice cracked. "Jesus Christ, what are you doing here?" Before anyone could answer, Cedric grabbed Sebastian by the jacket and pulled him inside, gesturing urgently for the others to follow. Get in. You're exposed out there." They filed into the observation post. Cedric slammed the steel door shut behind them, threw the bolt, then dragged a heavy wooden beam across it as additional reinforcement. Only then did he turn back to face them. The interior was larger than Sebastian had expected, carved deep into the mountain itself. His father had built well. The main chamber was maybe 30 feet across with a ceiling high enough to stand upright. A wood-burning stove sat in one corner, its pipe venting through a carefully concealed chimney. Sleeping bags and blankets were piled on a raised platform. Shelves lined the walls, holding canned goods, water jugs, ammunition, medical supplies, the stockpile of a man preparing for a siege. Maps covered one wall, marked with notes in Cedric's precise handwriting. Radio equipment sat on a makeshift desk, old gear, the kind you could repair with basic tools. A shortwave receiver crackled with static in the background. But what struck Sebastian most was the organization. Everything had a place. Everything was maintained. This wasn't the chaotic refuge of a broken man. This was the methodical preparation of someone who'd learned to live with purpose in isolation. Cedric lit 2 more candles, casting the room in a warmer glow. Then he turned to Sebastian, and the brothers stood face to face for the first time in 3 years. "You got my trail," Cedric said. It wasn't a question. The locket, the journal, the microfilm and the map pins. Sebastian's voice was tight, controlled. "You knew I'd find them eventually." "I hoped. Wasn't sure. Thought maybe—" Cedric trailed off, shook his head. "Doesn't matter. You're here now. That means they're close behind you." "We lost them," Chen interjected. "Professional pursuit, but we shook them before the mountains." Cedric's eyes snapped to her, assessing. "FBI. Special Agent Sarah Chen. And you're Captain Cedric Cole, officially deceased as of January 1983. Officially, Cedric agreed. He looked at Thorne next. Army Intelligence. Major Grayson Thorne, your brother's analyst. Cedric nodded, then his gaze returned to Clem. His expression softened, became almost painful to watch. Clem, I told you to forget about me. I told you to move on. I tried, Clem said quietly. Turns out it's hard to forget someone when their brother shows up at your workplace and tells you everything you knew was a lie. I'm sorry, I'm so damn sorry. I never wanted to drag you into this. Too late for sorry. But her voice wasn't angry, it was sad. Are you okay? Are you safe here? Define safe. Cedric gestured around the chamber. I've been here 3 years. They haven't found me yet, but they're looking. They never stopped looking. They, Sebastian said. You mean General Ashford? Cedric's head snapped around. You know. We found your evidence, the microfilm. CID has it now. They're building a case. Cedric laughed, a harsh sound with no humor in it. A case against Victor Ashford. He's a 2-star general with 30 years in the intelligence community. He has friends in every agency, every committee. You think a case is going to touch him? The microfilm documents 8 years of selling classified information to Soviet intelligence, Sebastian countered. Wire transfers, dead drops, photographs. That's not speculation. That's proof. Proof he'll bury. Proof he'll discredit. Proof he'll make disappear, just like he made Dad disappear, just like he tried to make me disappear. Cedric moved to the map wall, traced a finger along a series of marked locations. You want to know how deep this goes? Ashford didn't just sell secrets. He built an entire network. Officers in every branch, contractors, politicians. The Crimson Unit wasn't disbanded in 1980. It went private. Apex Solutions is just the tip. There are 6 other companies all connected, all doing his dirty work. Sebastian felt the ground shifting beneath him. 6 companies. At minimum, maybe more. I stopped counting after I hit 12 names on the payroll. Cedric pulled down a notebook, flipped it open. Here, these are the people I documented. Former Crimson Unit operators now working as security consultants. You recognize any names? Sebastian scanned the list. His stomach dropped. Colonel Michael Brennan, Major Paul Henderson, Captain David Morrison. Henderson, his brother's commanding officer in Alaska, the one who'd filed the death report. Morrison, the CID agent who'd briefed them on the attackers at the ranch. Morrison is CID, Sebastian said slowly. He's working with Mercer right now. Morrison is Ashford's, Cedric corrected, has been since 2001. He feeds information to the general, makes sure investigations go nowhere. How do you think they found you at the ranch so fast? Thorne swore. We told Morrison everything. Our plans, our evidence. Which means Ashford knows exactly where you are and exactly what you have. Cedric closed the notebook. Which means this observation post is compromised. We have maybe 12 hours before they converge on this location. Probably less. Then we leave, Chen said. We extract now, get you to a secure facility. There is no secure facility. Cedric's voice rose, echoing in the stone chamber. Don't you understand? Ashford's network is everywhere. The moment I surface, the moment I testify, I'm dead. The only reason I'm alive now is because he can't find me to kill me. Then what's the plan? Sebastian asked. Hide here for the rest of your life. Wait for him to die of old age. The plan was to document everything. Build an airtight case. And when the time was right, release it all simultaneously to every oversight committee, every major newspaper, every foreign intelligence service. Scorched earth, make it impossible to bury. Cedric gestured at the shelves. I have copies, physical documents, microfilm, even audio recordings I made using directional mics when Ashford met with his network. Everything is duplicated and cached in 7 locations across 3 states. That's why you sent copies to the Senate Intelligence Committee, Sebastian said, remembering what Thorne had suggested earlier. But Cedric shook his head. I didn't send anything to the Senate, not yet. Too risky. They're infiltrated too. Sebastian's blood went cold. Then who? The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the night air. Distant but growing louder. Everyone froze. Cedric moved to a slit window barely 6 inches wide, carved at an angle to prevent direct sight lines, and peered out. His face went pale in the candlelight. 4 birds, he said quietly. Military configuration, troop transports. He turned back to the group. They're here. How? Chen demanded. We weren't followed. I know we weren't followed. Sebastian pulled out the satellite phone Mercer had given him, the one he hadn't used, the one that was supposed to be encrypted. But if Morrison was compromised... The phone, Sebastian said, it's a tracker. Cedric grabbed it from his hand, examined it. GPS transponder. Passive signal. You wouldn't know it was broadcasting. He crossed to the stove, opened the iron door, and threw the phone into the flames. Too late now. They've had your location for hours. The helicopter sound was growing louder, multiple engines overlapping. Through the narrow window slit, searchlights began to probe the mountainside. Defensive positions, Sebastian ordered. He checked his shotgun, made sure he had extra shells. Thorne moved to cover the door, his rifle at ready, despite his injured leg. Chen took up position near the window slit with her AR-15. Clem stood in the center of the room holding her pistol with white-knuckled grip. She looked terrified but determined. Cedric moved to a section of wall and pulled aside a tarp, revealing a cache of weapons Sebastian's father had stockpiled decades ago. Rifles, ammunition, grenades, some of it dated, but all of it maintained. Dad was preparing for World War III, Cedric said, pulling out an M16. Never thought I'd be grateful for his paranoia. How many entrances? Sebastian asked. 2, the main door you came through and an emergency exit that leads to a cave system on the north face. It's narrow, defensible, but it opens onto a sheer drop. Only way down is rappelling. I have ropes, but it'll take time. Then we hold them here, Sebastian said. Buy time to prepare the escape route. Through the window slit, they could see the helicopters beginning to land on a plateau about 300 yards down the mountain. Men were fast roping down before the skids even touched ground. In the harsh illumination of the searchlights, Sebastian counted at least 40 operators, 40 against 5. And one of the 5 was a waitress who'd never fired a gun until an hour ago. They're not taking chances, Cedric observed. Full tactical assault. Ashford must be desperate. Or he's here personally, Thorne said, making sure it's done right this time. The radio on Cedric's desk suddenly crackled to life. A voice cultured and familiar echoed through the chamber. Captain Cole, I know you can hear me. This is General Victor Ashford. I'm giving you one chance to end this without further bloodshed. Surrender yourself and the evidence. In exchange, I'll allow your brother and his companions to leave unmolested. You have my word as an officer. Cedric stared at the radio for a long moment. Then he picked up the handset. Your word as an officer, Cedric said into the microphone. That's rich coming from a man who murdered his commanding officer and has been selling state secrets to the Soviets for a decade. Static, then, your father was going to expose an operations that kept this country safe, Cedric. He was the traitor, not me. Everything I did to maintain strategic advantage in an impossible war. You did it for money. I have the bank records. Swiss accounts, Cayman Islands, Panama. $12 million over 8 years. Operational funding, untraceable resources for missions Congress would never approve. You're too naive to understand the realities of intelligence work. I understand you killed my father. I understand you tried to kill me. I understand you're willing to murder an entire team tonight to cover your crimes, just saying though. Cedric's voice was steady cold. And I understand you're never going to stop. So no, General, I'm not surrendering. Come and get me. He switched off the radio. Well, Chen said dryly, that could have gone better. He was never going to let us leave, Sebastian said. This way, at least we're not pretending. Cedric moved to the emergency exit, began checking the rappelling gear. Give me 10 minutes to set up the escape route. Can you hold them for 10 minutes? Sebastian looked at the steel door. The narrow window slits, the stone walls that had withstood 6 decades of Montana weather. We can hold them for 10 minutes. Then I suggest you get started. Cedric paused, looked at his brother. Sebastian, if I don't make it out of this, you're making it out. If I don't, the cache locations are written in code in my journal, the one you already found. The page margins, UV ink. You'll need a blacklight to read it. Sebastian nodded. Noted. Now set up that rope. Cedric disappeared into the shadows at the back of the chamber. Moments later, they heard the sound of metal grinding on stone as he opened the emergency exit. Outside, the tactical teams were organizing. Through the window slits, Sebastian could see them splitting into groups. One team was setting up a heavy machine gun. Another was hauling what looked like breaching charges up a muffled path. They're going to blow the door, Thorne observed. Let them try, Sebastian said. That door is 3 inches of hardened steel with a rare titanium core. It'll take more than C4 to punch through. Chen pointed. Movement on the north face. They're trying to find the emergency exit. Cedric said it's camouflaged, and the cave system is a maze. They'd need a guide. The first gunshots rang out. Warning shots probably aimed at the window slits. Rounds pinged off stone, ricocheting into the night. Sebastian didn't return fire. No point in wasting ammunition or revealing their exact positions. Then came the explosion. The breaching charge detonated against the main door with a sound like the end of the world. The concussive wave rattled equipment off shelves. Dust and smoke filled the chamber. But when the smoke cleared, the door was still there, scorched, dented, but intact. "Told you," Sebastian muttered. The radio crackled again, Ashford's voice no longer polite. "That was a warning. The next charge will be shaped focused. Your father built well, but nothing's impenetrable. Save yourselves the trouble. Come out now." "Should I tell him to fuck off?" Chen asked. "Or would that be unprofessional?" "Probably both," Thorne said. Cedric emerged from the back tunnel. "Ropes set, cave exit is clear, but we have a problem." "Just one?" Sebastian asked. "The drop is 80 feet straight down to a scree field, in the dark, with ice. We'll need to rappel one at a time, which means someone has to stay behind to cover the withdrawal." Everyone understood what that meant. Someone had to hold this position while the others escaped. A rear guard action, a delaying sacrifice. Thorne stood up, favoring his injured leg. "I'll do it." "Thorne," Sebastian began. "No arguments, Colonel. My leg's shot. I'll slow you down in the mountains. But I can hold a position and pull a trigger." He moved to the heavy weapon cache, selected a belt-fed M60. This'll give them something to think about. Sebastian knew he was right. Knew it with the cold calculation of 20 years in combat zones. But knowing didn't make it easier. "How long can you hold?" Sebastian asked. "Long as I need to. You just make sure my death pisses off enough people to bring Ashford down." "Done." Another explosion rocked the door. This one was more focused, more powerful. The steel groaned but held. Smoke alarms would be blaring if they had power. "Go," Thorne said, moving into position behind a barricade of supply crates. "I'll give you 15 minutes. After that, I'm lighting up everything I've got and going out loud." Sebastian gripped Thorne's shoulder. For a moment, the professional soldier facade cracked. "It's been an honor, Major." "Likewise, Colonel. Now get the hell out of here before I change my mind." Cedric led Clem and Chen toward the emergency exit. Sebastian took one last look at Thorne, a good man, a loyal officer preparing to make the last stand that wouldn't be in any official record. Then he followed his brother into the darkness. The cave system behind the Eagle's Nest observation post was a labyrinth carved by water over millennia. Narrow passages barely wide enough to squeeze through opened into chambers tall enough to echo. Cedric moved through it with the confidence of someone who'd mapped every inch his LED headlamp, casting shadows that danced on wet stone. Behind him, Clem struggled to keep pace, her breathing ragged in the thin air. Chen brought up the rear, her AR-15 held at ready, sweeping each junction they passed. Sebastian followed his brother, watching Cedric navigate turns without hesitation. 3 years in isolation had changed him, sharpened him into something harder than the idealistic engineer Sebastian remembered. "How far?" Sebastian called forward. "Half a mile, maybe less, but it's all vertical from here." They rounded a corner and the passage opened into a cavern. On the far side, a shaft of moonlight penetrated from above the emergency exit. Cedric's rope dangled down, anchored to a bolt driven deep into the ceiling. The sound of gunfire echoed through the cave system behind them. Sustained bursts. Thorne had engaged. "He's buying us time," Chen said quietly. "We need to move." Cedric was already setting up the rappelling system. 80-foot drop, scree field at the bottom, so you'll want to push off fast when you land. "Clem goes first. I'll anchor. Chen, you're second. Sebastian third. I'll come down last and cut the rope so they can't follow." "How do you get down if you cut the rope?" Clem asked. Cedric pulled a second thinner cord from his pack. "Backup line, lighter gauge, not rated for rapid descent, but it'll hold my weight for a slow climb down." "What if they find this exit before you're down?" "Then I'll have a bad day. Now clip in." Clem hesitated, staring at the rope disappearing into darkness below. She'd never rappelled before, never climbed. She was a waitress from a truck stop diner, and now she was supposed to drop 80 feet down a mountain in the dark. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm sorry, I can't." Sebastian moved beside her. "Yes, you can. Cedric will talk you through it, one step at a time. The same way you got through everything else these past few days for ease." "That was different. That was terrifying. I know, this is too. But scared and unable aren't the same thing." Clem looked at him, then at Cedric, who was holding the harness ready. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay, tell me what to do." Cedric worked fast, fitting her into the harness, showing her how to control descent with the belay device. "The rope goes through here. Squeeze to stop, release to drop. Don't release too much at once or you'll free fall. Small movements. Trust the system." "What if the rope breaks?" "It won't. It's rated for 2,000 pounds. You weigh, what, 120? 125, Clem said indignantly. Despite everything, Cedric smiled. It transformed his haggard face for just a moment, and Sebastian saw his little brother again underneath the weathered exterior. Then you've got margin. Now go. We're out of time. Clem positioned herself at the edge of the shaft, looking down into darkness. The wind howled up from below, bringing the scent of pine and snow. She stepped off. For a heart-stopping moment, she dropped fast, then caught herself on the belay, stopping her descent with a jerk that swung her into the rock face. She gasped, but held on. Good, Cedric called down. Now feed the rope, slow and steady. They watched her descend, her progress marked by the sound of boots scraping stone. 30 seconds later, her voice floated up. I'm down. Chen was already clipping in. See you on the ground. She repelled like she'd done it 100 times before. Smooth, controlled, professional. FBI training included mountain ops, apparently. Sebastian was next. He checked his gear, tested the anchor point. Behind them, the gunfire from the observation post was intensifying. Thorne was giving them everything he had. Sebastian, Cedric said, before you go, I need to tell you something. Save it for the ground. No, listen, if Ashford is here personally, he brought Vera. Sebastian paused, 1 foot already over the edge. What? Vera's involved. She's been part of this from the beginning. Her engagement to you wasn't romance, Sebastian, it was cover. A way to monitor what you knew, what you suspected. The words hit like physical blows. Sebastian thought of the past 6 months, the quiet dinners, the plans for June, the way she'd always asked about his work, his cases, his colleagues, intelligence gathering disguised as intimacy. You're sure, Sebastian said. I have recordings, her and Ashford planning how to handle you if you got too close to the truth. I'm sorry, I know what she meant to you. She meant a paycheck and a strategic alliance, Sebastian said flatly. I didn't love her. I'm not sure I was capable of it anymore. More gunfire from above. Closer now. They were through the observation post. Thorne's delaying action was over. Go, Cedric urged. Now. Sebastian clipped into the rope and stepped into space. The descent was controlled chaos. He let the rope feed through the belay device, dropping in controlled bursts, pushing off the rock face when it got too close. The scree field appeared below, illuminated by moonlight, a slope of loose stone that would be treacherous to navigate, but better than a sheer drop. He hit the ground, unclipped, moved aside. Chen was 20 feet away, weapon up, scanning the tree line. Clem crouched behind a boulder, pistol drawn. Sebastian looked up. Cedric was already on the rope, descending fast. Too fast. Then Sebastian saw why. Flashlight beams were probing the cave shaft from above. Shouts echoed down. They'd found the emergency exit. Cedric, drop, Sebastian yelled. His brother didn't need to be told twice. He released the belay and fell the last 15 feet, hit the scree field, hard rolled. Sebastian heard something snap ankle or leg, the crack of bone audible, even over the wind. Cedric gasped in pain, but didn't cry out. He pulled a knife from his belt and cut the rope. The severed end snaked up into the darkness, pulled by whoever was above. Can you walk? Sebastian asked, helping Cedric to his feet. Not well, but I can move. Chen was already scouting ahead. Tree line is 50 yards. After that, it's dense forest for at least a mile. We can lose them in there. From above the sound of voices, they were trying to figure out how to get down without a rope. They'd probably send someone back for rappelling gear, but that would take time. Time the group didn't have. Sebastian pulled Cedric's arm over his shoulder, took his weight. Lean on me, Chen take point. Clem, stay between us. They started down the scree field. Every step sent loose stones skittering. The sound was loud in the quiet night, announcing their position to anyone listening. Halfway to the tree line, searchlights from the helicopters found them. The light was blinding, turning night into artificial day. Sebastian heard the helicopter engines changing pitch, repositioning for a better angle. Then came the gunfire. Not from the helicopters, from the cave opening. Someone had rigged a rope and was rappelling down, firing as they descended. Rounds kicked up stone chips around them. Move, Sebastian shouted. They ran. Cedric hobbled on his broken ankle, biting back screams with every step. Clem stumbled on the loose stone but kept going. Chen laid down, covering fire, short controlled bursts that forced the shooter to take cover. They made the tree line as the first helicopter swung around for a gun run. The forest swallowed them, the thick pines providing cover from the searchlight. But they could hear the pursuit. Boots on stone, radio chatter. They were coordinating, boxing them in. We can't outrun them, Cedric gasped. Not with my ankle. Sebastian's mind raced. 4 of them injured and exhausted, being hunted by a coordinated force of at least 30 operators with air support. The math was brutal. Then we don't outrun them, Sebastian said. We outthink them. He looked around. They were in dense forest on a steep slope. Above the helicopters were trying to track them by heat signature, but the tree canopy was thick enough to provide some concealment. Chen, you've got wilderness training. What's the terrain like below us? Steep for another mile, then it levels out into a valley. There's a river, I saw it on the approach, maybe half a mile down. River means cold water. Cold water mass heat signatures. It also means hypothermia in about 15 minutes at these temperatures. Better than a bullet. Sebastian turned to Cedric. Can you make it to the river? I can make it to hell if it means getting away from Ashford. They started down the slope, moving as quietly as possible through the underbrush. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit were getting closer. Flashlight beams cut through the trees. Then they heard the barn, and not literal dogs, but the helicopter-mounted thermal imaging had found their trail. The searchlight was probing the forest in a grid pattern, working systematically toward their position. Faster, Sebastian urged. Cedric was flagging his breath, coming in ragged gasps. The pain from his ankle had to be excruciating, but he didn't slow. Chen helped support him from the other side. Clem moved ahead, using her smaller size to slip through gaps in the undergrowth. She was surprising Sebastian. The terrified waitress from 3 days ago had been replaced by someone harder, more resilient. The slope got steeper. They were practically sliding now, using trees to control their descent. The river sound was getting louder, the roar of whitewater over rocks. They burst out of the tree line onto a rocky bank. The river was 30 feet across, moving fast chunks of ice visible in the moonlight. The water would be just above freezing. Sebastian ordered. That's suicide, Chen protested. So is staying here. Above them, the helicopter was approaching its searchlight, sweeping back and forth. They had maybe 30 seconds before it found them. We go in, let the current take us downstream, get out on the far bank, Sebastian said. The water will break our heat trail. They'll lose us. Or we'll drown, Cedric said. But he was already moving toward the water's edge. They waded in, the cold hit like a hammer. Sebastian felt his muscles seize his breath, lock in his chest. Beside him, Clem gasped, and he grabbed her arm to keep her upright. The current was stronger than he'd anticipated, pulling at their legs. Stay together, Sebastian shouted over the roar of the water. Link arms. They formed a chain, Sebastian, Cedric, Chen, Clem, and let the current take them. The river swept them downstream. The cold was beyond pain, beyond thought. Sebastian's training kicked in the survival techniques for cold water immersion. Keep your head up. Control your breathing. Don't panic. Above, the searchlight found the spot where they'd entered the water. The helicopter hovered, scanning up and down the river. But the thermal imaging was useless now. They were the same temperature as the water, invisible to the sensors. Sebastian counted in his head. 30 seconds in the water, 60, 90. Hypothermia would set in fast. They needed to get out. The river bent around a rocky outcropping. On the far side, the bank sloped gently, a possible exit point. There, Sebastian pointed. They fought the current, angling toward the bank. Cedric was barely conscious now, his grip on Sebastian's arm loosening. Chen was supporting Clem, who looked like she was going into shock. They reached the bank and crawled out, collapsing on the frozen ground. Water streamed off them, already starting to freeze in their clothes. We need fire, Chen said through chattering teeth, or we're dead in 20 minutes. No fire, Sebastian said. The smoke will give away our position. Then we keep moving, generate body heat. They helped each other up. Cedric could barely stand. Sebastian put his brother's arm over his shoulder again, took his weight. There's a cabin, Cedric managed through blue lips, quarter-mile downstream, left it stocked for emergencies. If we can reach it, lead the way. They stumbled through the forest, leaving the river behind. The helicopter was still searching upstream, apparently convinced they'd drowned or exited on the near bank. 10 minutes of agonizing progress brought them to a small structure barely visible in the underbrush. Not a cabin, really. More of a hunting blind that had been weatherproofed and reinforced. Cedric pulled aside a camouflage panel, revealed a door. No lock. He pushed it open. Inside was dark, but Sebastian could smell wood smoke residue. There was a stove. Supplies. Blankets. Get inside, Sebastian ordered. Chen, help me with Cedric. They pulled Cedric into the shelter. Clem was already stripping off her wet outer layers with shaking hands. Chen found a cache of dry clothes, military surplus, probably scavenged from old supply drops. No fire yet, Sebastian said. Not until we're sure they've moved on. They huddled together in the darkness, sharing body heat, waiting for the shivering to subside. Outside, they could hear the helicopters in the distance, the sound growing fainter as the search moved away. Cedric's breathing was shallow, rapid. Sebastian checked his ankle in the dim light, filtering through gaps in the walls. Badly swollen, probably fractured. They needed to splint it. First aid kit, Sebastian asked. Cedric pointed weakly to a shelf. Sebastian found it along with a battery-powered lantern. He risked turning it on, keeping the light low. The shelter was about 10 feet square, packed with survival gear. Cedric had prepared well. Multiple bolt holes all stocked, all hidden. A man living like a fugitive, but thinking like a soldier. Sebastian splinted Cedric's ankle using materials from the first aid kit. His brother bore it in silence, though sweat beaded his forehead. "Thank you," Cedric whispered when it was done. "Thank me when we're out of Idaho." Chen had been listening at the door. "Helicopter sounds are fading. I think they've moved the search pattern north." "They'll come back," Sebastian said. "Once they realize we're not in the river, they'll expand the grid. We've got maybe 2 hours before they sweep this area." "Can we move in 2 hours?" Chen asked, looking at Cedric. "He can't walk on that ankle, not for miles." "Then we call for extraction. Use the sat phone." Chen stopped. "Right, the phone is Ash." "We're on our own," Sebastian confirmed. Clem spoke up from her corner, where she'd wrapped herself in a wool blanket. "What about the evidence, the caches Cedric mentioned?" Cedric stirred. "Nearest cache is 6 miles south. An old mining claim abandoned in the 50s. I buried a waterproof case with copies of everything." 6 miles with a broken ankle, Chen said. "We'd need a litter to carry him." "Or I stay here and you go get it," Cedric said. "Not happening," Sebastian countered. "We stay together." "Sebastian, be realistic. I'm a liability. You take Clem and Chen, get to the cache and get out. I'll hide here. Ashford doesn't know about this shelter." "He didn't know about the observation post either until tonight." "Morrison," Cedric said bitterly. "He must have broken the investigation notes. Figured out where we were going. Which means he knows about your network, your safe houses, everything you told us in the observation post." The implications hung in the air. If Morrison had fed information to Ashford, then every plan, every cache location, every advantage they thought they had was potentially compromised. "We need to assume worst case," Chen said. "Assume Ashford knows everything. Plan accordingly." Sebastian thought through their options. Limited weapons, no transportation, no communications. One injured man, being hunted by a force that had air support, night vision, and a complete intelligence picture. The math wasn't good, but they had one thing Ashford didn't expect. They knew Morrison was compromised. "We feed them information," Sebastian said slowly. "Use Morrison against them." "How?" Chen asked. "We don't have comms with Mercer." "No, but they're listening for us to use comms. They're expecting us to call for help." Sebastian turned to Cedric. "This shelter, does it have a radio?" "Shortwave, old military surplus." "Why?" "Because we're going to send a message. Encrypted but not well encrypted. Something they can break in an hour or two." "Saying what?" "Saying we're headed to your cache at the mining claim, 6 miles south. That we need extraction at that location." Chen understood. "False flag, draw them to the wrong location." "While we go where?" "North," Cedric said. "Opposite direction. There's a Forest Service road about 8 miles. During winter, it's closed, but there are ranger cabins. One of them might have a working radio, real communications." "Can you make 8 miles on that ankle?" "If the alternative is dying here, yes." Sebastian looked at his brother, gaunt, injured, exhausted, but still fighting, still refusing to give up. "Okay, new plan. We rest for 1 hour, dry out, warm up, eat something if there's food. Then we send the false flag message and move north, fast as we can." "What about Thorne?" Clem asked quietly. No one answered immediately. They'd all heard the gunfire, the sustained firefight, then the silence. "Thorne bought us the time we needed," Sebastian said finally. "We make sure it wasn't wasted." They settled in to wait. Cedric found the food cache, MRS, canned goods, dried fruit. They ate in silence, recovering strength. Chen kept watch at the door, her AR-15 at ready. Sebastian sat beside his brother. In the lantern light, Cedric looked old, beyond his 35 years. "I'm sorry," Cedric said quietly, "for all of it, for not coming to you 3 years ago, for letting you think I was dead. You were protecting me. I was being a coward. I thought if I disappeared, Ashford would stop, that he'd think I was dead and move on. I thought I could build a case from the shadows and hand it to you wrapped in a bow." Cedric laughed bitterly. "Stupid. He never stopped looking. And now I've pulled you into this mess. I pulled myself in the moment I saw that locket. You gave me a choice even if you didn't know it. Some choice. Get killed by corrupt generals or live in ignorance. Better than no choice at all." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the wind had picked up howling through the trees. It would cover any sound they made, which was good. But it also meant they couldn't hear pursuit until it was on top of them. Vera, Cedric said. I meant what I said. She's not who you think she is. I know. I've known for a while, I think. Just didn't want to admit it. Sebastian checked his watch. We've got 40 minutes left. You should rest. Can't sleep. Too cold, too wired. And then help me plan the route north. Where exactly is this Forest Service road? Cedric pulled a map from memory, sketching it on a scrap of paper with a pencil stub. Here, the road runs east-west. The ranger cabin is here about a quarter-mile off the main road. It's marked on official maps, so Ashford's people will know about it. But they won't expect us to go there because it's too obvious. Exactly. Hide in plain sight, Dad's favorite trick. Sebastian studied the sketch. 8 miles of mountain terrain in the dark with an injured man. They'd need to average about 2 miles an hour. Doable barely if Cedric could keep moving. What about weapons at this cache you mentioned? Chen asked. The mining claim. Some, mostly ammunition for rifles we don't have. A few handguns, nothing that'll turn the tactical situation around. Every bullet helps. Time crawled. Sebastian kept checking his watch, counting down the minutes. When they hit the 1-hour mark, he stood. Time, Chen send the message. Cedric, tell her the encryption code you'd use. Cedric walked Chen through a simple substitution cipher, the kind that looked complex to a casual observer, but could be broken by anyone with basic cryptanalysis skills, which meant Ashford's intelligence people could crack it in under 2 hours. Chen composed the message, extraction requested, 6 miles south mining claim coordinates 44.2347 minus 114.8567. Will arrive dawn, 3 personnel, 1 injured, emergency medical needed. Confirm receipt. She sent it on the shortwave, repeated it 3 times, then shut down the radio. Done. Now we move before they triangulate the signal. They helped Cedric to his feet. Sebastian fashioned a crude crutch from a branch padded with strips of cloth. It wouldn't be comfortable, but it would take some weight off the injured ankle. Chen took point again. Sebastian supported Cedric. Clem brought up the rear, her pistol drawn. They slipped out of the shelter into the pre-dawn darkness. The wind was fierce now, cutting through their layers, but it also meant low visibility. The helicopters would be grounded until the wind died down. Small advantages. They'd take what they could get. They started north, moving slowly through the forest. Every 100 yards they stopped to listen, heard nothing but wind and the occasional crack of a branch under snow load. An hour in, Cedric stumbled. Sebastian caught him before he fell. I need to rest, Cedric gasped. 5 minutes, no more. They found shelter behind a fallen log. Chen scouted ahead while they waited. She returned, shaking her head. There's a ridge ahead. Steep. We'll need to go around. How far? Adds a mile, maybe more. Sebastian did the math. 8 miles had just become 9 or 10. At their current pace, they wouldn't reach the Forest Service road until mid-morning. Daylight. When the helicopters could fly again. They didn't have a choice. We go around, Sebastian decided. They pressed on. The terrain fought them every step. Snowdrifts, ice patches, deadfall that blocked their path. Cedric's breathing was labored, his face pale even in the dim light. But he kept moving. Dawn began to break around 6 a.m. Gray light filtered through the trees, revealing a landscape of white and shadow, beautiful and deadly. There, Chen pointed. Through the trees, a break in the forest. The Forest Service road exactly where Cedric had said it would be. They approached cautiously. The road was buried under 2 feet of snow, no tracks visible. Chen checked both directions with binoculars. Clear, no signs of recent activity. The cabin, quarter-mile east. I can see the roof. They followed the road, moving in single file. The going was easier here, the snow more evenly packed. Cedric was able to move faster with the crutch. The ranger cabin appeared through the trees. Small, built of logs with a pitched metal roof designed to shed snow. A propane tank sat beside it, and Sebastian could see a radio antenna on the roof. Communications. Finally. They approached the door. It was locked, but Chen had it open in 30 seconds with her lockpicks. Inside was cold but dry. A single room with a wood stove, a cot, a desk with a radio setup. Emergency supplies lined the shelves. Chen went straight to the radio, began checking it. It's a VHF repeater, Forest Service frequency. We can reach the main ranger station, but Ashford's people are probably monitoring Forest Service frequencies, Sebastian finished. Yeah. Cedric collapsed onto the cot, his face gray. Doesn't matter, we have to risk it. We can't keep running forever. Sebastian knew he was right. They were at the end. No food, no shelter, 1 injured man. If they didn't get help soon, the cold would kill them before Ashford could. Make the call, Sebastian said. Chen keyed the mic. This is a priority emergency call to Lewis Clark National Forest Ranger Station. We are 4 civilians requiring immediate assistance and law enforcement support. Our position is Ranger Cabin 7 on Forest Service Road 429. Repeat, this is a priority emergency. Static. Then a voice professional alert. Ranger Cabin 7, this is Lewis Clark Dispatch. Copy your emergency. What is the nature of your situation? We are being pursued by hostile forces. We have 1 injured individual. We need immediate evacuation and law enforcement assistance. Copy that. Can you identify the hostile forces? Chen looked at Sebastian. He nodded. Affirmative. Hostile forces are operating under the direction of U.S. Army General Victor Ashford. This is a federal matter. Contact FBI Field Office. Missoula Special Agent in Charge Wilson. Confirm that Colonel James Mercer, CID, is aware of our situation. Long pause. Sebastian could imagine the dispatcher trying to process that information. Hostile forces. A general. FBI involvement. Ranger Cabin 7 standby. I need to escalate this call. Negative dispatch. We don't have time for escalation. Hostile forces have air support and will converge on this location within the hour. We need extraction now. Another pause. Then a different voice came on the line. Older, authoritative. This is Station Chief Hendricks. Who am I speaking with? Lieutenant Colonel Sebastian Cole, U.S. Army Intelligence. I am currently operating with Special Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. We are in possession of federal evidence pertaining to an ongoing investigation. We have been attacked by private military contractors working for General Victor Ashford. We need immediate law enforcement and military support. Colonel, I'm going to need some verification before The sound of helicopter rotors cut through the morning air. They're here, Chen said, looking out the window. Sebastian could see it through the trees. 1 helicopter coming in low and fast. No military markings. Black anonymous. Apex Solutions. Dispatch, hostile forces have arrived at our location, Sebastian said into the radio. We are under attack. I need you to get law enforcement here now. Colonel, the nearest sheriff's deputy is 30 minutes out. Then you better tell him to hurry. Sebastian dropped the mic and grabbed his shotgun. Chen, cover the door. Clem, stay low. Cedric. I'm not dead yet, Cedric said, pulling himself up. He grabbed a rifle from the emergency supplies, checked the chamber. I can still shoot. The helicopter was landing in the clearing beside the road 50 yards away. The door opened and men poured out. 8 of them, full tactical gear. And 1 figure in a different uniform. Not tactical gear, an officer's dress uniform. General Victor Ashford had come personally to finish this. The helicopter's rotors wound down, but the silence they left behind was somehow more ominous than the noise. Through the cabin's small window, Sebastian watched the tactical team spread out in a textbook perimeter formation. Professional, disciplined, Apex Solutions operators just like the team that had attacked the ranch. But it was the figure standing beside the helicopter that held Sebastian's attention. General Victor Ashford was 62 years old, but he carried himself like a man 20 years younger. Even at this distance, even through the warped glass of the Ranger cabin window, his presence was commanding. He wore his army dress uniform, Class CA. Sebastian noted full decorations. 2 stars gleamed on his shoulders. Ribbons covered his chest, a career of service reduced to colored cloth, or a career of treachery disguised as patriotism. Beside Ashford stood a woman, Vera. She wore civilian clothes, tactical pants, and a dark jacket, but she moved with military precision as she scanned the cabin through binoculars. Sebastian, Cedric said quietly from his position behind the overturned desk. That's Vera. I told you. I see her. Chen had positioned herself at the window on the opposite wall, her AR-15 resting on the sill. 8 shooters plus the general and the woman. We're outgunned 3-1. Wouldn't be the first time, Sebastian said. But the bravado felt hollow. A voice echoed across the clearing, amplified. Ashford had a megaphone. Lieutenant Colonel Cole, Captain Cole, I know you're in there. I have the cabin surrounded. You have nowhere to run. This ends one of 2 ways: you surrender or we burn you out. Your choice. Sebastian didn't respond. He was calculating angles, distances, cover points. The cabin was built of thick logs which would stop most small arms fire. But they'd seen what Apex Solutions brought to the ranch. Breaching charges, incendiary grenades. The general had the resources to reduce this structure to ash. Sebastian, Ashford's voice again closer now. The general was walking toward the cabin, hands clasped behind his back like he was inspecting a parade ground. 50 yards, 45. I'm giving you a chance your brother never got. Walk out with your hands up. You and Special Agent Chen can leave. I have no quarrel with you. This is between me and Cedric. Don't believe him, Cedric hissed. He let us get this far so he could kill us all at once. No witnesses, no loose ends. Sebastian knew Cedric was right. Men like Ashford didn't leave loose ends. The only question was how to play this. Chen's radio suddenly crackled. The Forest Service frequency. Ranger Cabin 7, this is Sheriff's Deputy Rollins. I'm 15 minutes out with backup. Hold tight. 15 minutes. An eternity in tactical time. Ashford must have heard it too. His team likely had scanners. His expression hardened. You called for help, Ashford has said, still walking closer, 30 yards now. That was smart, but help isn't coming fast enough, Sebastian. My people are already monitoring the frequency. The deputy's vehicle will encounter a fallen tree, blocking the road in approximately 8 minutes. By the time he clears it or goes around, this will all be over. Sebastian's radio crackled again. Different voice. Sebastian, it's Mercer. If you can hear this, hang on. We're coming. But Mercer's voice was broken by static. Distant. How far out was CID? Ashford smiled. He'd heard it too. Your Colonel Mercer is at the base of the mountain, Sebastian. He has to come up the same road the deputy is using. Same fallen tree. Same delay. You're on your own for... He checked his watch with theatrical precision. Let's call it 20 minutes. Maybe 30 if they drive fast. 20 minutes. Here's what's going to happen. Ashford continued, now only 20 yards from the cabin. Close enough that Sebastian could see his face clearly. The general's expression was calm, almost paternal. You're going to walk out hands up. You're going to drop your weapons. And then you're going to watch while my team takes Cedric into custody. He'll be tried for desertion, for theft of classified materials, for discovering you're a traitor, Cedric shouted from inside the cabin. His voice was raw, defiant. For documenting 8 years of you selling secrets to the Soviets. For finding proof you murdered my father. Ashford's mask didn't slip. Your father was an obstacle to operations that kept this country safe. He didn't understand the complexities of modern intelligence work. Neither do you. I understand you profited $12 million while American soldiers died because you sold troop movement intelligence. Operational funding for off-book missions, Congress would never approve. Everything I did for yourself, Sebastian cut in. He stepped to the door, opened it slightly. Not enough to expose himself, but enough to be heard clearly. I've seen the evidence, General. The microfilm, the bank records, the photographs. You weren't running Black Ops. You were running a criminal enterprise using military cover. Ashford's jaw tightened. First crack in the facade. You have no idea what you're talking about, Colonel. You've been fed a narrative by an unstable, conspiracy-minded deserter who faked his own death and has been living like a paranoid hermit for 3 years. The microfilm is fabricated. The so-called evidence is currently being reviewed by the Senate Intelligence Committee, Sebastian lied. But it was a lump that served a purpose. Mercer sent copies before we left Missoula. Even if you kill us all right now, it's too late. The investigation is official. The evidence is in play. Sebastian watched Ashford's expression carefully, saw the calculation happening behind those cold eyes. The general was trying to determine if Sebastian was bluffing. You're lying, Ashford said finally, but there was doubt in his voice. Am I? You want to bet your career on it? Your freedom. Because the moment you order your men to attack this cabin, you cross a line you can't uncross. Right now, you can claim this was all a misunderstanding, a rogue element in your old unit, plausible deniability. But if you kill a federal agent and 2 Army officers in cold blood with sheriff's deputies 15 minutes away and CID coming up the mountain, there's no walking that back. It was a good argument. Sebastian could see it landing, but then Vera stepped forward, whispered something in Ashford's ear. The general's expression hardened into something final. Resolved. You're right, Sebastian, Ashford said. I can't walk this back, which means I need to walk through it. If the evidence is already at the Senate, then killing you changes nothing except removing witnesses who can testify. Without testimony, it's just documents. Documents can be discredited. Witnesses are harder. He stepped back, gestured to his team. Burn it. The operators moved immediately. 2 of them pulled incendiary grenades. Military-grade thermite, the kind of weapon that burned hot enough to melt steel. Wait, Clem's voice high and clear. She appeared in the doorway, hands up, pistol dangling from one finger by the trigger guard. Wait, please. I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything. Let me go, please. She looked terrified, young, vulnerable. Ashford hesitated. Sebastian understood what Clem was doing, creating a moral complexity, making it harder for Ashford to give the order, because burning alive a frightened young woman was different from eliminating military targets. Miss Ashford said, his tone softening slightly. Step away from the cabin. Walk toward me. Hands where I can see them. Clem took 3 steps forward. 4. She was in the open now, completely exposed. Drop the weapon, Ashford ordered. Clem's pistol hit the snow. Keep walking. Slowly. She walked, each step measured. When she was 10 feet from Ashford, she stopped. Please, she said again. I just want to go home. Ashford studied her. Sebastian could see the general weighing options. Let her live and she might testify. Kill her and it's one more murder to justify my... Vera, Ashford said. Take her into custody. The rest of you proceed with the operation. Vera moved forward, pulling flex cuffs from her belt. That's when Clem moved, fast. Faster than anyone expected from a terrified waitress. She'd palmed something when she dropped the pistol, a small cylinder Sebastian recognized as a flashbang from the cabin's emergency supplies. She must have taken it when they weren't looking. She pulled the pin and threw it directly at Ashford's feet. Then she dropped flat in the snow. The flashbang detonated. The sound was catastrophic in the confined space of the clearing. Ashford stumbled backward, hands to his ears. Vera went down disoriented. The tactical team scattered, their night-adapted vision destroyed by the brilliant white light. Now, Sebastian shouted. Chen opened fire from the cabin window. Controlled 3-round bursts. 2 operators went down immediately. Cedric added his fire despite his injured state. Sebastian charged out the door, Guillermo using the confusion. He grabbed Clem, pulled her back toward the cabin. Return fire started, wild, uncontrolled, the operators shooting at sound rather than sight. They made it back to the doorway as bullets chewed up the logs around them. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, Sebastian gasped, pulling Clem inside. I watch a lot of action movies, Clem said. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. Outside, Ashford was shouting orders, trying to reorganize his team. The flashbang had bought them maybe 30 seconds. But now the gloves were off. The first thermite grenade hit the roof. The metal started glowing white hot. Smoke poured through cracks. The temperature in the cabin spiked. We can't stay here, Chen said. We've got maybe 2 minutes before the whole structure is compromised. The back window, Cedric said. It's small, but you can fit through. There's forest cover 30 feet behind the cabin. What about you, Sebastian demanded. I'll fit, barely, but I'll slow you down. Then I'll carry you. Sebastian, not up for debate. The second thermite grenade hit. This one landed on the west wall. The logs started to char, to smolder. Flames licked up toward the ceiling. Move, Sebastian ordered. Chen went through the back window first, combat rolling into the snow, coming up with her rifle. Clem followed less gracefully but successfully. Sebastian helped Cedric to the window. His brother's face was pale, his breathing shallow. The pain from his ankle had to be excruciating. On 3, Sebastian said, 1, 2. The front door exploded inward, not from a grenade, from a battering ram. The operators had decided not to wait for the fire. 3 men poured through the burning doorway, rifles up, scanning for targets. Sebastian shoved Cedric through the window, then spun, bringing his shotgun to bear. The range was point blank. 10 feet. He fired. The first operator took the blast center mass, his body armor stopping the kill, but the impact throwing him backward into his teammates. Sebastian racked another round, fired again. The second operator dropped. The third one got a shot off. Sebastian felt the impact like a hammer to his left shoulder. The Kevlar vest he'd taken from the cabin supplies stopped the penetration, but the kinetic energy spun him around. He stumbled backward through the window, falling into the snow outside. Chen was there, pulling him to cover. Cedric was already moving toward the tree line, hobbling on his makeshift crutch. Gunfire erupted from inside the cabin. The operators were shooting blind through the smoke and flames. Run! Sebastian shouted, though his shoulder screamed in protest. They ran. Behind them, the cabin was fully involved now, flames reaching 20 feet high. Black smoke billowed into the morning sky. But they'd made it to the tree line. The forest swallowed them once again. From the clearing, Sebastian could hear Ashford shouting, organizing pursuit. But the general had lost the element of surprise, lost the tactical initiative. Now it was a chase, and Sebastian intended to make it the last chase Ashford ever ran. They moved through the forest, putting distance between themselves and the burning cabin. A quarter mile, half a mile, the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Chen stopped them at a small stream, barely more than a trickle. We need to tend that shoulder. Later, we keep moving. Sebastian, you're bleeding through your jacket. We stop now or you collapse in 20 minutes. He looked down. She was right. Blood had soaked through the jacket fabric, dripping into the snow. The round hadn't penetrated, but the impact had caused massive bruising and possibly broken his collarbone. 5 minutes, he agreed. Chen tore his jacket open, examined the wound. Bad bruising. You're going to have limited mobility in that arm. Can you still shoot? I can pull a trigger. Good enough. While Chen wrapped his shoulder with strips torn from her own shirt, Cedric collapsed against a tree, his face gray. I'm slowing you down, he said. Leave me here. I'll hide. You get to help come back for me. No. Sebastian. I said no. We've been through this. We finished this together. Clem was keeping watch, her recovered pistol in hand. Movement, southeast, 200 yards. They all froze, listening. The sound of boots on snow, radio chatter. The pursuit was methodical, professional. Ashford's team was sweeping the forest in a grid pattern. We can't outrun them, Chen whispered. Not with 2 injured. Sebastian's mind raced. They needed an equalizer, something to change the tactical math. Then he heard it. In the distance. Faint but growing louder. Sirens. The sheriff's deputies. They'd cleared the roadblock or gone around it, and that meant Mercer wouldn't be far behind. We need to get to the road, Sebastian said. Link up with law enforcement. The road is 2 miles north, Cedric said. Through that pursuit line. Then we go through it. Chen looked at him like he'd lost his mind. You want to charge a professional tactical team with 2 injured people and a civilian? I want to cause enough chaos that Ashford's people have to break off the pursuit to deal with us. Buy time for the deputies to arrive. Then we surrender to law enforcement, get protective custody, and let the system handle Ashford. That's insane. You have a better idea. She didn't. Okay, Chen said finally. Insane it is. What's the plan? Sebastian outlined it quickly. It was desperate, dangerous, and depended on at least 3 things going right that probably wouldn't, but it was the only plan they had. They gathered what little they had left. Chen had 2 magazines for her AR-15. Sebastian had 4 shells for his shotgun. Cedric had a rifle with half a magazine. Clem had her pistol with 9 rounds. It would have to be enough. They moved toward the sounds of pursuit, not away from them. Aggressive. Unexpected. Through the trees, Sebastian spotted 2 operators moving in a standard search pattern. They were focused on the ground, looking for tracks. They weren't looking up. Sebastian made eye contact with Chen. She nodded. They'd practiced hand signals during the descent from Eagle's Nest. Basic tactical communication. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Chen opened fire from elevated position, using a slight rise in the terrain for advantage. Her shots were precise, controlled. 1 operator went down. The other took cover behind a tree. Sebastian moved while the operator was focused on Chen. Flanking maneuver. Basic infantry tactics. He got within 20 feet before the operator spotted him. The operator's rifle came up. Sebastian's shotgun was faster. At that range, the spread was tight. The operator's Kevlar stopped most of the pellets, but the impact knocked him backward, dazed. Sebastian closed the distance, kicked the rifle away, and zip-tied the operator's hands with supplies from Chen's kit. 2 down, 6 plus Ashford and Vera still active. But now the element of surprise was gone. Radio chatter erupted. The team was responding to contact converging on their position. Move, Sebastian ordered. They ran north. The sounds of pursuit were all around them now. Flashlights cutting through the morning shadows. Shouts. The thunder of boots on frozen ground. Then they broke through the tree line. The Forest Service road stretched before them, buried in snow. And coming up that road, lights flashing, were 3 sheriff's vehicles. Behind them, 2 military Humvees painted in CID colors. Mercer had arrived. Down, get down, Sebastian shouted, pulling Clem to the ground. Chen and Cedric hit the dirt beside them. From the forest behind them, Ashford's remaining operators emerged, weapons raised. From the road, deputies and CID soldiers poured out of vehicles, taking positions behind cover. For one frozen moment, everyone was pointing guns at everyone else. Then a voice cut through the tension, amplified by a megaphone. This is Colonel James Mercer, Army Criminal Investigation Command. Everyone lower your weapons. Now, no one moved. Apex Solutions personnel, you are operating in violation of federal law on federal land. You will lower your weapons and submit to arrest, or you will be engaged by superior force. You have 10 seconds to comply. The operators looked to each other, uncertain. They'd been told this was a sanctioned operation. Black Ops. Classified, but staring down the barrels of CID rifles with local law enforcement as witnesses, the lie was impossible to maintain. One by one, the weapons lowered. On the ground, Hands behind your heads. The operators complied. From the forest, General Ashford emerged. He still carried himself with dignity even now. Vera walked beside him. Mercer strode forward, flanked by CID soldiers. He looked at Ashford with an expression of profound disgust. General Victor Ashford, you are under arrest for conspiracy treason, murder of a federal officer, and about 15 other charges I'll think of on the drive back to Missoula. You have the right to remain silent. This is a mistake, Ashford said. His voice was calm. These men were operating under my orders in the pursuit of a deserter. This is a military matter. Was a military matter, now it's a criminal matter, and you're a criminal. Mercer gestured to his soldiers. Cuff him. As the cuffs went on, Ashford looked past Mercer to where Sebastian was struggling to his feet with Clem's help. You have no idea what you've done, Ashford said. The operations I ran, the intelligence I gathered, it saved lives, American lives. You're so focused on the letter of the law that you can't see the bigger picture. The bigger picture, Sebastian said, limping forward, is that you murdered my father. You tried to murder my brother. You betrayed your oath, your country, and everyone who ever trusted you. And you did it for money. I did it for $12 million in offshore accounts. We have the records. Ashford's mask finally cracked. For just a moment, Sebastian saw the man beneath the general. Bitter, angry, cornered. Then the mask came back. This isn't over. Yeah, Mercer said, it really is. They loaded Ashford into one of the Humvees. Vera was placed in another, her face blank empty. Medics rushed to check Sebastian and Cedric. Someone wrapped Sebastian's shoulder properly. Someone else loaded Cedric onto a stretcher, started an IV for the pain and dehydration. Chen stood with the FBI agents who'd arrived with Mercer, giving her statement. Clem sat on the bumper of a sheriff's cruiser, wrapped in a thermal blanket, drinking bad coffee from a thermos. Sebastian walked over to her. You okay? He asked. Define okay. But she smiled slightly. I flashbanged a general? That's going to be a hell of a story. It was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Little column A, little column B. She looked at him seriously. Is it really over? The running part? Yeah, the legal part. That's just starting. You'll need to testify, probably multiple times. DOD, FBI Senate hearings. Will I be safe? Ashford's network is being rolled up as we speak. Mercer's been planning this for days. He had warrants-ready teams standing by. They're hitting all the Apex Solutions locations right now. You'll be safe. Clem nodded. And Cedric, what happens to him? Reinstatement, probably. Once the dust settles, he'll testify, help build the case. After that, Sebastian shrugged. He gets to decide what comes next, no one else. Will I see him again? That's up to you and him. Clem looked over to where Cedric was being loaded into a medical transport. Even from here, even injured and exhausted, he was watching her. Yeah, Clem said softly. I think I will. Mercer approached. Cole, need your statement. Give me a minute. You've got 5. Then you're getting in an ambulance whether you like it or not. Sebastian walked to where they were loading Cedric. His brother's eyes were closed, the morphine starting to work. Hey, Sebastian said, Cedric's eyes open. Hey, yourself. You did good, the evidence, the documentation. It's going to stick. You sure? I'm sure Mercer doesn't build cases that fall apart. Cedric was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry for everything, for the 3 years, for putting you through this. You already apologized. Didn't take the first time. Sebastian gripped his brother's hand. You were protecting your family. You were gathering evidence to bring down a traitor. You did everything right. I'm the one who should apologize. For not believing you were alive. For giving up. You didn't give up. You found me. Barely, and only because you left a trail obvious enough for even me to follow. Cedric smiled. It reached his eyes this time. That was the idea. The medics started to close the ambulance doors. I'll see you at the hospital, Sebastian said. Better be a good one. I'm tired of living in caves and eating MREs. Best hospital in Montana. General's orders. The doors closed. The ambulance pulled away, lights flashing, but no siren, no rush. Cedric was stable. Sebastian watched it disappear down the mountain road. Then he turned and walked to where Mercer was waiting with a CID agent in a digital recorder. Ready for your statement, Mercer asked. Yeah, let's get this on the record. And Sebastian began to talk. Not just about the past few days, but about all of it. The Locket, the journal, the microfilm, the ranch attack, the observation post, Thorne's sacrifice, the chase, the confrontation. He talked for 90 minutes straight, the recorder capturing every word. When he finally finished, Mercer turned off the device. That's one hell of a story, Cole. It's the truth. I know, that's what makes it hell. Mercer paused. I'm sorry about Thorne. He was a good man. The best. He deserves a Medal of Honor. He'll get one. I'll see to it personally. They stood in silence for a moment, watching the CID teams process the scene. Evidence bags, photographs, statements, the machinery of justice grinding into motion. What happens now? Sebastian asked. Now you get medical treatment. Then you get debriefed by about 6 different agencies. Then you testify. A lot. This is going to be the biggest military corruption case in 50 years. You're going to be very popular with prosecutors. I can't wait. After that, probably a promotion you don't want and a job offer you'll turn down. You're not wrong. What will you do after all this? Sebastian looked out at the mountains, at the wilderness that had almost killed him, but had also saved him. I think I'm done with intelligence work, done with secrets. My brother's alive. That's enough. Teaching, maybe you'd be good at it. Maybe, or maybe I'll just go home. Help my mother run the ranch. Learn to fix fence posts and brand cattle. Simple work. You'd go crazy in a month. Probably, Sebastian smiled. But it sounds nice right now. An ambulance pulled up. A paramedic got out, approached Sebastian. Sir, I need to check that shoulder. It's fine. Sir, with respect, you have a bullet wound that's been bleeding for 2 hours. You're going to the hospital. You can walk to the ambulance or I can have these gentlemen carry you. Your choice. Sebastian looked at Mercer. Don't look at me, Mercer said. I'm not arguing with medical professionals. Get in the ambulance, Cole. Sebastian got in the ambulance. As they drove down the mountain, he looked back one last time at the forest, at the burned ranger cabin, at the place where it had all come to an end. 3 years of searching, 3 days of running, and finally it was over. The Senate hearing room was packed. Reporters, cameras, spectators who'd waited in line for hours to get a seat. This was the testimony everyone had been waiting for. Captain Cedric Cole, restored to active duty, walked to the witness table. His ankle had healed, though he still had a slight limp. His hair was cut to regulation length. His uniform was pressed and perfect. He raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth. For the next 6 hours, he told it. Every bank transfer, every dead drop, every piece of classified information that General Victor Ashford had sold to Soviet intelligence over 8 years. The microfilm was entered into evidence. The photographs, the recordings. By the time Cedric finished, there wasn't a person in the room who didn't understand the full scope of the betrayal. The sentencing came 2 weeks later. General Victor Ashford, life imprisonment, Leavenworth Military Prison, no possibility of parole. Vera Ashford, 25 years federal prison. She testified against her father in exchange for a reduced sentence. 12 other officers, various sentences ranging from 10 years to life. The Apex Solutions Corporation, dissolved, assets seized. Major Grayson Thorne posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. His family received it at a ceremony that made Sebastian cry for the first time in 15 years. The Redbird Cafe opened on a sunny day in June in downtown Kalispell. It was small, cozy, with tables made from reclaimed wood and windows that let in the mountain light. Clem stood behind the counter pouring coffee for the morning rush. She wore jeans and a t-shirt, her hair pulled back in that same practical ponytail. The bell above the door chimed. Cedric walked in. Morning, he said. Morning yourself, the usual, please. She poured him a coffee, black 1 sugar, and slid a blueberry muffin across the counter. You know me too well, Cedric said. 3 months of you coming in here every morning? Yeah, I'm starting to get a sense of your patterns. He sat at the counter and they talked. About nothing important. About everything that mattered. When the morning rush ended and the cafe was quiet, Cedric pulled something from his pocket. A silver locket. The same one Clem had worn 3 years ago. The one that had started everything. I had it repaired, Cedric said. Properly this time. New chain, new clasp. He opened it. Inside was a new photograph. Not the old picture from the garage. A new one taken 2 weeks ago. Clem and Cedric at the ranch, both smiling. I figured, Cedric said quietly, if you wanted to wear it again. If you wanted to remember the good parts instead of the running. Clem took the locket, held it in her palm. The weight was familiar, comforting. Yeah, she said, I'd like that. As Sebastian Cole stood at the front of a University of Montana classroom teaching Introduction to Intelligence Analysis to a group of undergraduates who looked impossibly young, he was explaining the difference between data and intelligence, between information and understanding. A student raised her hand. Professor Cole, is it true you arrested a general? I was involved in an investigation that resulted in the arrest of a general, yes. What was that like? Sebastian considered the question. Thought about the ranch, the observation post, the running, the fear, the moment when everything had hung in the balance. It was necessary, he said finally. Sometimes you have to choose between what's easy and what's right, even when the choice might cost you everything. The student wrote that down like it might be on the exam. After class, Sebastian walked across campus. The June air was warm, the mountains visible in the distance. Students lounged on the grass. Life went on. His phone rang. Cedric. Hey, you coming to dinner tonight? Wouldn't miss it. Mom's making pot roast. I'm bringing Clem. Good, she's good for you. I know. They were quiet for a moment, the comfortable silence of brothers who'd been through hell and come out the other side. Sebastian. Yeah. Thank you for not giving up, for coming to find me. Always, little brother. Always. That night at the Cole family ranch, 7 people gathered around the dinner table. Evelyn Cole sat at the head, her eyes bright, surrounded by family again. Sebastian and Cedric sat on either side of her. Clem and Sarah Chen talked shop, comparing notes on the continued investigation. Colonel Mercer had driven up from Missoula to join them, bringing stories that made everyone laugh. An empty chair sat at the other end of the table, a glass of whiskey in front of it. For Thorne, for the friend who wasn't there but would never be forgotten. They ate, they drank, they told stories. And when the meal was done and the dishes were cleared, Sebastian stood on the porch looking out at the land his grandfather had built, his father had defended, and his brother had saved. Cedric joined him. Beautiful night, Cedric said. Yeah. You ever think about how different it could have been if Clem hadn't dropped that locket, if you'd been on a different assignment? All the time. Fate, maybe. Or chance, or luck. Does it matter? I guess not. They stood together in the twilight, 2 brothers who'd walked through fire and come out the other side. In the distance, a bird called. Not a red bird, just a bird, just a sound in the Montana night. A sound that meant peace, safety, home. The hunt was over. The running was done. And finally, after 3 years, the Cole brothers could rest.